Part 59. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 605. The Grand Duke is here, the gods avoid. The goddess gathered her strength and roared loudly, causing the surrounding world to shake. It was clearly a night sky, but the surroundings were filled with bright light. The old man's hair was as silky as snow, his complexion was as delicate as jade, without a trace of wrinkles, and his eyes were as deep as the sea. His steps create ripples, and wherever he goes, everything revives like a spring breeze. It was completely different from the so-called holy light of the Holy See. Even Su Tong did not feel the slightest discomfort when the sunlight shone on his body. But the strange thing is that no matter it is the Yin demon or Lilith, all their power has disappeared. It seemed that in the brilliance in front of him, the old man alone was the only true god in the world. Lilith, who had lost the blessing of the god, appeared in the air. Meidu looked at it with wide eyes and couldn't help but exclaimed, "Huh? There really is a young lady." Lilith looked at the old man in the light, and couldn't help but feel turmoil in her heart. "Why do I come to the east on my own, but every time I get off to a bad start, I always run into these ancient gods? When the Taigong arrives, the gods retreat." It was rumored that Zhang Zia presided over the conferred god war. Although he did not have the title of god in the end, he lived in the light and supervised the gods of the gods. Wherever he went, the gods abdicated, even giving up their throne to him. Although he is not a god, he is the leader of the gods. Realizing that his power was disappearing rapidly, the Yin demon's face showed a look of fear for the first time. He turned around and turned into a red light that quickly rushed out and was about to disappear into the clouds. The Taigong raised his head and looked at the back of the evil demon. Things that are not from the three realms cannot be kept within the three realms. There was no emotion in the indifferent voice. "I saw the bamboo pole in Taigong's hand swinging and making a clang sound. I saw the bamboo pole was shining brightly and quickly shrunk to about 3 feet. There were densely packed talismans flashing on it. Each section of this bamboo pole had 4 talismans. A total of 84 talismans. As Taigong waved his hand, a bright light flew out of the air, penetrating time and space. There was a sound of crack. The Yin demon could only let out an unwilling scream, and the Taoist priest's body was also destroyed. Seeing the Yin demon being beaten to pieces, it disappeared into nothingness. Lilith looked shocked and looked at the old man warily. "There are differences between the Eastern and Western gods. Please go back." Grandpa turned to look at Lilith and motioned for her to leave. Seeing this, Lilith hesitated for a moment, then looked back at Su Tong, then suddenly accelerated towards him. "The gods retreat." Seeing that Lilith refused to leave, Grandpa waved the bamboo pole in his hand expressionlessly, causing a bright light to burst out for a moment. Boom! The strong light struck at an extremely fast speed, shining behind Lilith, causing a look of pain on her face. But she didn't stop. Instead, she jumped in front of Su Tong. A silk scarf appeared in her slender fingers, and she wiped away the stains left by the devil's fingers on Su Tong's face. Only then was she contentedly drowned in the light. Inside. "I'll be back." Lilith's voice still echoed in Su Tong's ears, and Su Tong glanced at the corner of his mouth, hypocritical. At this time, the surrounding bright light disappeared, and Zhang Taigong's figure was seen walking away. Just as Meidu was about to shout to the old man, "Don't leave in a hurry," the lantern in his hand was suddenly lit by an open flame and turned into ashes in an instant. "Hey, why is this old man leaving so fast? There is still a problem that has not been solved." Meidu couldn't help but murmured when he saw this. "No need to bother, Sister Ba has already gotten her things and left." After hearing what Meidu said, the goddess explained to him with a smile. "Gone." Even Su Tong was surprised. "Of course, if she doesn't leave, are you still waiting for her to spank you?" After the goddess finished speaking, She walked to the ruins and after digging through a pile of rubble a few times, she found a pair of legs. "Hey, it's all my fault. I told you I would protect you, but you still died." The goddess said she was very sorry, but she didn't look sad at all. She just said to Maydu, "Remember to burn more paper money for this grandpa." "Humph, you don't need to explain this." Maydu responded with a grimace. "Can you not have a sad face? If you make such a big fuss, you may not know how your family will punish you afterwards. You want to leave?" Su Tong looked at Tianu and asked. He still couldn't move at this moment. It had been more than half an hour, but his body showed no signs of returning to action. "Yes, Sister Ba is still waiting for me. We plan to go to Chunyang Palace as our next stop," the goddess said with an innocent look. "Chunyang Palace?" Su Tong and Maydu looked at each other. "Where is Chunyang Palace?" "That is the ancestral home of Quanzhen sect. The three religions among the three religions and 9 streams. It's not a place like May's house where you can come and leave as you please. Even in the contemporary era, when all the great masters in the world have become extinct, it would be strange to say that the Quanzhen sect's foundation cannot be used against the master's wife. Even if the May family made such a big fuss this time, did it really affect the May family's foundation? Thinking about the rockery in the yard of the May family and the portrait of the plum blossom Taoist, Su Tong could conclude that the true heritage of the May family was not revealed at all. Even the elders of the May family were not at home this time. Su Tong felt strange about such a coincidence. If the May family is like this, how can a place like the Quanzhen sect be a place where the master's wife can come and leave as she pleases? "What exactly are you planning to do?" Su Tong looked at Tianu and asked. "It's Sister Ba, not me. She's looking for her body. I just want to follow her and have a look." After the goddess finished speaking, she looked Su Tong up and down. "I won't talk to you anymore, I'm leaving." "Why?" Maydu wanted to say something else, but the goddess turned around, stuck out her tongue at him, made a face, jumped up to the roof lightly, and disappeared into the night in a few steps. "Holy shit, is this little girl so good at Qinggong? It's a good thing I carried her out of the yin-yang cave in the first place. Sure enough, she's a liar with a woman's mouth." Maydu couldn't help but complain when he saw the goddess disappearing into the night. After saying that, he walked to Su Tong, carried Su Tong on his back, and asked at the same time, "What should I do, Brother Gao?" "It's nothing. My wife probably just borrowed his body, and she won't repay it. When it gets dark, he might wake up from above." Su Tong couldn't help but think about his wife. From the words of the goddess, it is not difficult to know that this master lady wants to find all her body remains and truly fully resurrect her. Although it is said that the foundation of the three religions is unfathomable, although those foundations are there, in today's era, except for players, there are really few people who can defeat her. Who knows what this bitch plans to do after she is resurrected? I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Don't let it all turn out to be the fault of Master's romantic debt. It will come full circle and be blamed on yourself in the end. Maydu thought about it and realized that what Su Tong said made sense. He immediately carried Su Tong and walked out. "Then let's leave quickly. My grandpa knows that I have caused such a big trouble and he might pull out my skin." Seeing Maydu's guilty look, Su Tong couldn't help but shook his head and said, "Then you may have made a wrong calculation. Your grandfather and the others have come back a long time ago and are waiting for you at the door. Although he has not yet completed his physical advancement, his 5 senses have already detected the sound of a galloping buzz in the distance. Since he did not hear the fire alarm bell, there is a high probability that it is someone from the May family." "What?" Maydu was startled, waiting for him to carry Su Tong to the door. Sure enough, he saw his father, second uncle, and fourth uncle's cars parked outside the door waiting. "Dad? Are you back?" Maydu walked over with his head lowered. People from the May family hurried forward and helped Su Tong down, who was lying on Meidu's back. Meidu's father ignored Meidu instead. He bowed his hand to Su Tong and said seriously, "Thank you, Senior, for helping to eliminate the scourge of Yin demon from the world." As soon as these words came out, Su Tong lost his temper and said with a toothy smile, "It has nothing to do with me, I'll just win." Meidu's father was startled when he heard this, but when he saw that Su Tong couldn't even stand, he immediately said sternly, "Senior is too humble. Please rest and recuperate as soon as possible. If you need any medicine to replenish your energy and strength, just ask, I will." The May family is definitely obliged to do so. When Meidu saw this, he couldn't stand it anymore and couldn't help but said, "Dad. He is really." "Shut up, I haven't told you yet. Senior is visiting May's house. Why didn't you tell your family about such a big thing in advance?" Meidu's father interrupted Meidu directly. His eyes were like bells, and he was about to beat him up. The corner of Meidu's mouth twitched, thinking, how can you blame me? How many days in advance did you tell me that I was going out today? Can I talk to you? But he didn't dare to talk back, so he could only accept it obediently. Of course Su Tong could see that May's father was the son's scapegoat, and he said this deliberately. But since other people were using their sons as a stepping stone, I would happily follow it. Anyway, if you don't take advantage, you won't be able to take advantage of it. So Su Tong happily lay down on a stretcher under the arrangements of the May family, was put in the car, and sent to a quiet place specially prepared by the May family to recuperate. Su Tong was sent away. Father May's expression improved a lot. He turned around and patted his son on the shoulder, and said in a slow tone, "I know it's not your fault, but you have to shoulder the blame." Meidu was not stupid. Of course he knew what his father meant, so he just asked, "Did you know that the Yin demon would come out? And you deliberately left me here? Am I your biological son? Or did you talk to my mother recently? Are you ready to open a trumpet account? You little melon, what are you talking about? This is the result of my grandfather's divination several times some time ago. Only if you survive this catastrophe, will there be no trouble in the future." Father May glared at him, and then said, "The result of your grandfather's divination this time is extremely dangerous. Only when a noble person comes to rescue you can you turn danger into good luck. It seems to you that this talker of the seven sects is your destiny. You must not offend the noble people here in the future." Meidu rolled his eyes and thought to himself, it's probably because the old man made a miscalculation. "Okay, go back and rest, we will take care of the rest." After speaking, May's father motioned for his son to go back and rest. But Meidu didn't feel tired, but was very excited. "How about I come with you, Dad? I tell you, it's very exciting today. The Yin demon is an old Taoist priest. The rumors are true. It is really an old Taoist priest who does not know life and death. He summoned the Yin demon, but the Yin demon took over his body. There are also the embroidered shoes I told you about last time. I saw that girl today, and she was very fierce. Goddess, forget it, have you heard about Taigongjiang? Taigongjiang has appeared. It is the lantern that our family enshrines. It turns out that it is going to be lit up with the hanging lantern technique." Meidu chattered like a child who discovered a treasure, eager to explain everything he saw to his father. But as Father May listened, he thought of Su Tong who could barely stand, and couldn't help but sigh, "It's really dangerous, my child. You have to thank me more afterwards. If it weren't for this great master who protected you, Dad is afraid that the white-haired person will give the black-haired person." After speaking, May's father patted Meidu on the head, stood up and walked towards the crematorium, ready to direct everyone to start the rescue work. He didn't notice at all that the dull-looking Meidu was still standing messy in the wind. After holding it in for a while, he said with a grieved face, "But he really lay there from beginning to end. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 606. News from this city. At 3 o'clock in the morning last night, the crematorium of the Sichuan crematorium exploded. The investigation of the accident is suspected to be due to illegal operation by employees, which caused the explosion of the incinerator. The relevant departments have issued a rectification notice and required the employees of the crematorium to reoperate. Training: this kind of illegal work method is not advisable, and must be implemented in place. On the TV news, footage of the aftermath of the crematorium last night was shown. Su Tong was lying on the bed, enjoying the qi and yang yuan soup that was brought to his mouth. The Mei family specially arranged for 2 little nurses to stay by Su Tong's side and take care of him so meticulously that Su Tong had to lament the sins of capitalists. In contrast, Gao Zhou's treatment was not so good. This unlucky fool woke up at dawn, got up and saw that he had been thrown into the cemetery behind him. I could only run back in a daze. When the Mei family saw that this man had neither arms nor legs and was moving freely, they were very polite, but they did not arrange a nurse for him. After drinking the special qi nourishing soup, Su Tong expressed that he wanted to rest and asked the 2 young nurses to go back and rest first. After that, Gao Zhou sat up from the sofa and asked, "Are we being used as weapons for others?" The Mei family must have known what was going to happen early in the morning, so they went out together to avoid the disaster. Thinking about it now, Gao Zhou couldn't help but feel a little unhappy. "Relax, we haven't lost anything, right? We just gained a favor for nothing. What else do you want?" Su Tong spoke in relief. "After all, I lay down almost the whole time last night, and my harvest was extremely rich. After reading the Zhiling book, I not only completed all the contents of the 7 paper skills, but the greater gain was to obtain Yanshu. This is a unique skill that truly belongs to you. More importantly, it has great potential for extension and development. With Yanshu, you will embark on a path that is completely your own. These are benefits worth $1,000. The only bad thing is that I can only lie down now. God knows what went wrong. I thought that the physical advancement could be completed in half an hour, but it turned out that a day had passed and I still couldn't move." In this regard, Amoda also expressed his helplessness. He himself could not tell where the problem was. This made Su Tong very depressed. He even had some doubts as to whether this guy Ameda was deliberately playing tricks on him. Gao Zhou lay on the sofa again. After Su Tong said this, he thought to himself that this was also the case, and his mentality suddenly became much more relaxed. The 2 were chatting. Su Tong suddenly closed his mouth and motioned to Gao Zhou to open the door. When Gao Zhou opened the door, he saw Mei Du and his father just walking into the yard. As soon as he entered the door, Mei's father walked up to Su Tong and thanked Su Tong again. "I heard what Quan Zi said about last night. Thanks to Senior, otherwise our Mei family would have been in great trouble." When Su Tong heard this, he couldn't help but look at Mei Du. I saw Mei Du blinking at Su Tong, meaning, "Just admit it, you can't explain it clearly." "Ahem, uncle, just call me Su Tong. Mei Du and I are good brothers." Yes, those who achieve first come first. We heard about you not long ago. Speaking of it, Mr. Shui's feats in Bamang Mountain back then were just a matter of destiny. Those who are stubborn about the past and are inflexible are trying to open up an era. Those who reverse the car deserve to be buried in Bamang. It's a pity that I was still a young child and couldn't help much, otherwise I would have given Mr. Shui a helping hand. Seeing Mei's father's expression of indignation, Su Tong thought to himself, "Don't be accidentally killed by my master then, it will be a great pleasure." Seemingly realizing that he was too excited, Mei's father quickly changed his voice. "Last time in Yin Yang Cave, you helped our family find the 3 plum blossom hairpins. Mei Du has already told me about this matter. Today, the old man asked me to send a message. He has been in poor health recently, but the May family assures you, our May family will never forget this favor. Uncle, you're welcome. The Chi sect originally came from the same sect as the May family. Speaking of which, Taoist Mai Hua is also our ancestor. Su Tong responded with a smile. Yes, yes, we are all one family. One family does not speak the same language as the other. This is the May family's wish. As long as you are willing to bring this thing to the May family will do its best to fulfill any request. May's father took out a box with a jade plaque inside. 3 plum blossoms are carved on the jade plaque, and the stone skin on the jade is used to create a clever color. The delicate carving actually gives people a lively feeling. A master-level carver. Su Tong took one look and recognized the value of this thing. Yes, this jade tablet was made by a jade craftsman of the Grand Master level. It's a pity that in this world, there are no craftsmen of the Grand Master level. When May's father said this, his face was full of sighs. The status of the May family in the world and the inheritance of the May family, if it were not for the reasons of the times, the achievements of the May family should never be lower than those of the 3 religions. However, times have changed, the dragon's veins have been cut off, and the end of the world has come. By Shuegui's time, there had never been a great master in the May family. Even his own father, the old man of the May family, was only half a master. Grand Master has become a title of the past. After May Du simply thanked him, he did not continue to disturb Su Tong's rest. He simply told May Du to ask for whatever he needed, and then got up and left. After sending May's father away, May Du finally breathed a sigh of relief. Lying down on the bed, "I'll go, it's finally over. Oh, by the way, this is for you." May Du suddenly remembered something, took out a book from his arms and handed it to Gao Zhou. Gao Zhou took it and took a look, and he was so happy that he almost laughed to the back of his head. Isn't this the May family's corpse refining technique that he has longed for? Now he can finally complete the missing part of the Gao family's corpse refining technique. Gao Zhou was happily holding this book when Su Tong, who was sitting on the bed, suddenly clenched his fingers into fists. He looked at Gao Zhou and said, "Don't stay with me here. Go out for a walk, I can just sleep here by myself." "Oh, okay, let's go out and have some fun. It's hard to come to Chengdu. It would be a pity not to go out and have some fun." Gao Zhou stood up with understanding and pulled May Du out. "Ken." May Du looked at Su Tong and found that Su Tong was nodding slightly to him. Seeing this, although May Du was suspicious, he still followed Gao Zhou and left. As soon as the two of them walked out of the door, Su Tong's face began to look painful, and the severe pain made his body begin to twitch violently. Black scales began to grow under the skin, and sharp fangs protruded from the corners of the mouth. A rich dark aura enveloped his body. It was truly a rebirth, but it was an inhuman torture. His whole body was cracked, and his internal organs seemed to have been displaced. The pain made him sweat. Ding. Your Chi Dragon power and Dark Constitution have a fusion effect, evolving into a Dark Chi Dragon. Ding. The prop card Dark Physique has been destroyed. Your behavior may have violated regulations. The judgment is pending. You violated the rules and destroyed the prop card Dark Physique, and you will be punished by deducting half of your script points. When the prompt ended, half of the script in the prop book evaporated instantly, making Su Tong want to curse, but he had no strength at the moment. The huge pain all over his body, like bone and marrow scraping, made his consciousness start to become a little blurry. I just felt like my body was constantly sending out bursts of tingling pain, especially in my heart. Every beat seemed to come out of my throat. However, as time went by, the discomfort gradually began to subside, replaced by a kind of comfort and ease that he had never experienced before. Ding. Your body has undergone a change, and you have acquired the physique of a Dark Chiron. Please think about and develop the characteristics of the Dark Chiron on your own. Ding. Fused with Lilith's heart, the demon bloodline has been upgraded to LV5. Dark bloodline LV5. You can produce great bloodline suppression on high-level demons. This effect is also effective on demon-type players. You have merged with Lilith's heart. Lilith will feel the coordinates and direction of your existence at any time. If the distance is very close, there is a chance of a spiritual connection. A series of continuous prompts came. Su Tong slowly sat up and looked at the black scales growing under his skin. He opened his hands and found that his fingernails had become thick and sharp and emitted a cold light. He tried scraping it on himself a few times, only to hear a metallic sound, and sparks shot out from his scales. He glanced at the mirror in the corner. He saw that his appearance in the mirror had completely changed. His face was covered with scales. Fortunately, there were no double horns on his head, so he still looked like a human. "Can you put this thing away?" Following Su Tong's thoughts, these scales actually retracted under the skin, and he returned to his normal appearance in the blink of an eye. He pressed lightly, and the bedboard beneath him suddenly collapsed. At this moment, my body was completely different from before. If I looked carefully, there was still a glistening light flowing under my skin. I stood up from the bed carefully. I felt that my body was incredibly light. I opened the door to the courtyard and tried to walk in the sunshine. I found that after the sunlight hit my skin, there was an invisible force that swallowed up the light. At this time, he felt that his physical body had reached an unprecedented level. Even without relying on prop cards, he was strong enough to fight against the players in the shadow group last time. If you combine it with your own prop cards, you can completely crush them. Just when Su Tong was trying to adapt to his new body, the phone on the table suddenly rang. Su Tong walked to the table and picked up the phone. He couldn't help but be startled when he saw a familiar number on the phone, and the owner of this number was Yang Zixuan, who had been missing for a long time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 607. Dudu, Dudu. Looking at the familiar number on his phone, Su Tong thought for a moment and then hung up the phone. At the same time, he pulled out the phone card and crushed it into pieces. When this call comes in, there are only two outcomes. One is that Yang Zixuan is still alive and calls him to tell him the news and ask about the location of his family. The other is that Yang Zixuan is still alive, but is controlled by the people of the Shadow Group. As for myself, no matter which one it is, I will not accept it. From the day I fulfilled my promise to Yang Zixuan, the Yang Zixuan in my heart has died. If he is not dead and escapes the pursuit or control of the Shadow Group, then let him come to him. Really stand in front of him, otherwise, at this moment, he is a dead person in his heart. Su Tong has no habit of answering calls from dead people. The number you dialed is temporarily unavailable, please try again later. Boss, this guy won't answer the phone. We can't track him down now. In a basement, several people raised their heads and looked at the figure sitting on the sofa playing games. Da-da-da-da-da. There was dead silence in the basement, everyone was waiting quietly, and for a while there was only the clicking sound of the handle. KO. Looking at the end of the game on the screen, the man said, "It doesn't matter, follow him in the next script world." With that said, the man put down the game controller in his hand. Walking to the metal door on the side, he opened the door and saw a bloody person hanging on the wall inside. Take him with you, maybe he can be of some use. Time passes day by day. Su Tong and Gao Zhou temporarily lived in Mei's house. In the past few days, Su Tong has been adapting to his new body. He and Gao Zhou conducted an experiment. After Gao Zhou transformed into a corpse, he punched Su Tong on the body, and his fingers were injured by the shock. Although he no longer has the prop card dark physique, his current dark Ilong body has almost completely inherited all the advantages of dark physique. Whether it was Gao Zhou's physical attacks, his corpse poison, or his curses, they almost didn't do any harm at all. You must know that even if he is a half-step master, Gao Zhou's combat power after transforming into a corpse will definitely not be inferior to that of an ordinary Grand Master. He is so powerful that he can easily break open a stone as big as a millstone with one punch. But when it hit Su Tong, it only made him shake slightly. While making Gao Zhou call him abnormal, he couldn't help but desire to become a certified player. I believe that this result will not take long. Gao Zhou has obtained the corpse refining technique of the Mei family, and has basically made up for the corpse technique that he lacks. And his ability is to absorb the power of zombies from the zombies he refined. So in theory, as long as he can complete a complete version of Feishan Yaksha himself, he can have the power of a Grand Master level. Su Tong also gave him the bearded body of the last shadow group, the body of a certified player as material, plus Mai Hua's corpse technique and a corpse refining ground provided, and he became a Grand Master level corpse refining person. A sure thing. The two took time to enter an exhibition. The intention is to prepare to form a team. But I learned from Mei that if Su Tong wants to establish a team, he needs to establish a temporary team first. Only after completing the team tasks can he obtain the certification level team qualifications. And even if a certified level team is successfully established, Gao Zhou will not be able to join the team if he does not reach the certified level player. In a word, non-certified players have no human rights. Su Tong and Gao Zhou were depressed now, but Mei gave Su Tong an idea. That is to ask Gao Zhou to apply for a script delay, and then trigger the certification task as soon as possible. Su Tong will then use the certified player privileges to forcefully descend to his space. In this way, both of them can complete the certification task and the other the team building task in the certification script world without any delay. This operation really surprised Su Tong and Gao Zhou. Of course, this is also a routine operation. After all, after becoming certified players, they are the real ones served by the script library. If Su Tong's certification level is higher, he can also unlock higher level privileges. For example, ultra-low prices and the ability to purchase special props internally, waiver of appraisal fees, etc. Not to mention Gao Zhou, Su Tong was also envious of these services. Especially the appraisal fee, the 100,000 script points that he had finally gambled away, but 50,000 evaporated in one fell swoop. When Su Tong thought about this, he felt heartbroken. That money was used to identify the magical item obtained from the lucky wheel. Now it seems that this matter can only be postponed for a while. After consultation, Su Tong and Gao Zhou entered the exhibition and walked around. Unfortunately, Gao Zhou cannot enter the high-level exhibition area, and the resources in the low-level exhibition area are pitiful. So the two of them just took a quick turn and didn't stay any longer. I don't know if it was because of Su Tong last time. Now in the low-level exhibition area, the method of gambling on the prop book has begun to emerge. Su Tong also took Gao Zhou to take a look, but when he got there, he found that the so-called prop book was shabby and old. At first glance, it looked like junk goods screened out from high-end exhibitions. But even so, business is still booming, because not long ago someone gambled on an extremely rare space prop card in a prop book. As for whether it was a commission, Su Tong didn't know, but it wasn't necessarily true that these old prop books were all garbage. In short, this kind of thing is completely betting on personal luck. After the two of them left the exhibition, Gao Zhou immediately started to retreat to practice corpse refining. When the Mei family heard that Gao Zhou planned to refine Feishan Yaksha, they found a good place for Gao Zhou. This place was none other than the Mei family's ancestral home behind Qingcheng Mountain. This made Gao Zhou extremely happy. What is Qingcheng Mountain? It is known as Tianqi Cave, the fifth cave of Taoism and the Blessed Land. Its status is not inferior to Longhu Mountain. As for the ancestral home of the Mei family, it is even more extraordinary. It is located in the plum blossom forest deep in Qingchen Mountain. The Taoist plum blossom dojo there allows a strange person like the Taoist Mai Hua to open a dojo here. It is conceivable that it must be a geomantic treasure. So early in the morning, Gao Zhou packed up his things and got in the car with Su Tong, heading straight to Qingchen Mountain. Qingchen Mountain is only about 2 hours' drive from Leiyan village. Mei Du was in charge of driving on the way. This time, we finally didn't have to take the hearse last time, but a small RV. Xiadu, are all these things prepared for us? There are too many of them, can't we finish them? On the way, Gao Zhou looked at the back of the carriage, which was full of instant noodles, flour, rice, and other food, and couldn't help but ask Mei Du. No, it's easy for us to deal with. There are a lot of food selling at the bottom of Qingchen Mountain. These are prepared for the Taoist masters on the mountain. It's a rare trip, so of course you have to bring more. Mei Du drove the car and explained to Su Tong. In fact, the current scenic spots on various avenues are no longer suitable for monks to practice. Often, in many scenic spots, half is contracted out and the other half is left behind to prohibit tourists from entering. The same is true for Qingchen Mountain. Although Qingchen Mountain is not big, it is known as the deepest place in the world. No one knows how many things are hidden in this place. As the heirs of the Mei family, the Taoist masters in Qingchen Mountain also have a close relationship with their Mei family. This time the Yin demon was eliminated, and it was time for him to go up the mountain and report a message to those Taoist men. The car did not drive into the gate of Qingchen Mountain scenic area, but turned a corner and took a detour towards the back mountain of Qingchen Mountain. Su Tong sat in the car, looking at the distant mountain peaks from a distance, and couldn't help showing an envious expression. Even in modern times, the incense of Qingchen Mountain is still very strong. The Qi gate of the life eye opened, and the entire mountain in front of me was glowing. The pure incense merit and the huge luck emanating from the mountain merged together. On the top of the mountain, layer after layer of silver light transpired, and there was even more light. The golden brilliance flows like a fairy mansion in the sky. This kind of power is so vast that it makes people's hearts tremble, and it cannot be measured at all. The entire mountain has long been deified, and every plant and tree has immortality, and is thoroughly nourished by the brilliance. This is the accumulation of thousands of years and dynasties, and finally we have such a magical and incredible picture today. It is worthy of being the cave of the three religions and the blessed land of the immortals. Su Tong looked thoughtfully at the fairy mansions deep in the clouds, wondering if there were gods living above them. This point made De Ya cry. It's true that people are dying compared to others, and goods are thrown away when goods are compared. Wu Xiantang's luck has been cut off, but Qingchen Mountain still has the same incense and luck as it has been forever. No wonder people from the three religions seldom get involved in the disputes between right and wrong in the world. If I were to guard such a treasure mountain, I wouldn't go anywhere. Wouldn't it be nice to concentrate on cultivation? Is it really okay to refine corpses here? Su Tong looked at Mei Du. After he used his life icon to clearly see Qingchen Mountain's huge fortune, he couldn't help but feel worried. Refining corpses is not the right path after all. To put it bluntly, it is a crooked way. You can find a place in a ravine and no one will care about you, but if you go under someone else's nose, even if it is the ancestral home of the Mei family, it seems a bit unjustifiable. It's okay, don't worry, Taoists are not that hypocritical. Our Mei family and Qingchen Mountain have already made an agreement. Mei Du knew what Su Tong was worried about and started to explain to him. The mountain has two sides, one yin and one yang. Originally, the Taoist priests in Tianchi Cave were on the yang side, and the Mai Hua Taoists were on the yin side. In this way, a balance of yin and yang can be achieved. Later, the world changed, and the Mei family decided to adapt to the changes of the times, walked out of the mountains, and freed up part of the place for the Taoist masters to practice. However, there is a condition here. The ancestral home of the Mei family cannot be moved. If the people of the Mei family want to come back to practice, as long as they do not do anything harmful to nature, the Taoist masters have no right to interfere. I see. When Su Tong heard this, he felt much relieved. The background of the Mei family is unfathomable, but compared to Qingcheng Mountain, it is still a step behind the boss. I really don't know who gave her the courage to go to the Chunyang Palace of the Quanzhen sect. I hope the Taoist priests of Chunyang Palace can make Master Niang understand what is dangerous in the world. Hey, if I think this way, will Master be unhappy? Just as Su Tong was thinking wildly in his mind, the car gradually stopped. Su Tong and Gao Zhou felt something strange in their hearts, coming towards the direction of the car. When I looked around, I saw a young Taoist priest standing on the side of the road, waving to the car. Senior Brother Zhang. Mei Du opened the car window and stuck his head out and shouted enthusiastically. The young Taoist nodded to him with a smile. He immediately looked at the car window and moved his lips lightly. Although he did not make a sound, the sound was already transmitted to Su Tong and Gao Zhou said, the poor Taoist Zhang Haisheng has met two theater friends. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 608. Player. Su Tong and Gao Zhou couldn't help but be a little surprised. I didn't expect to meet a player here, and the player was wearing a simple Taoist uniform and a bun on his head, completely dressed like a Taoist. Combined with the fact that Mei Du called him senior brother just now, could it be that the other party's identity is still a Taoist priest from Qingcheng Mountain? If this is the case, the opponent's strength may be terrifying. With the powerful foundation of Qingcheng Mountain, it has surpassed the starting point of ordinary players countless times. Combined with those incredible prop cards, it is a headache to think about. The car door opened and Zhang Haisheng got into the car. This is senior brother Zhang. He is a close disciple of Taoist master Dongxian of Tianqi Cave in Qingcheng Mountain. He is also the vice president of our Qingcheng Taoist Association. Mei Du introduced Su Tong and Gao Zhou. Before the two of them could speak, Zhang Haisheng said with a smile, Zhang Haisheng of Qingcheng Mountain, I met with my two Taoist friends. I have long heard that there is another Grand Master from the seven sects behind the Yunyang Mountain in western Hunan. I am very happy to congratulate you. It seems that the blessing left behind by Mr. Shui was it's really not shallow. Fellow Taoist, you're welcome. Compared with Qingcheng Mountain, we, the Qi sect, are from such a low-class family, I'm afraid we won't be able to attract your attention. I don't know if it's because of their parentage. Su Tong and Zhang Haisheng looked at each other, a bit like they were looking at each other. A flash of light flashed in Zhang Haisheng's eyes, and he stretched out his hand with a smile, fellow Daoist Su has seen something outside. There are 3,000 Taoisms in the world. Who dares to say who is orthodox and who is obscene at the end of the road? Isn't your excellency already a rare great man today? Grand Master. The world is undecided. You and I are both dark horses. Whoever is in front or behind may not be able to determine the outcome. Su Tong stretched out his palm and pinched Zhang Haisheng's hand. When the palms of the two people touched each other, there was a buzzing sound like thunder. Snapped. The explosion immediately caused the surrounding car windows to shake, making Mei Du dizzy and almost fainting. Gao Zhou also felt uncomfortable, and there was a buzzing in his ears, which made him feel like he was going deaf. For a moment, Zhang Haisheng's brows were slightly raised, and a green light appeared in his pupils. After looking Su Tong up and down, he slowly let go of his hand, and there was a handprint on the thin white palm. Interesting, the world is indeed undecided. After Zhang Haisheng finished speaking, he took out an invitation letter from his sleeve and handed it to Su Tong. The old man from the Mei family called this morning, and my master, Taoist Master Dongxian, immediately wrote down this invitation letter and asked me to deliver it. After Zhang Haisheng handed over the invitation letter, he handed it over, turned around and got out of the car. Before leaving, he waved his sleeves and a refreshing and cool feeling hit his face. Meidu, who was almost fainting, sneezed and became energetic. Recovered. Junior brother Mei, I have to go down the mountain one more time, so I won't see you off. I'll see you on the mountain tomorrow. Oh. Meidu shook his head, not knowing what was going on. When he looked back, he saw Su Tong holding a golden letter in his hand with the Qingcheng mountain seal on it. He immediately became energetic. What's this? Invitation card. Su Tong opened the letter as he spoke. After taking a look at the handwriting on it, he couldn't help but wonder, Lushan De Jiao. Yeah. Let me see it quickly. Upon hearing this, Meidu immediately leaned over and said, it's true, we have caught up. What is the Lushan De Jiao? Gao Zhou scratched his head. What did this mean? Meidu immediately rolled his eyes at him and said contemptuously, Brother Gao, please study when you have time. Don't you know such an important thing? To put it bluntly, it's a sacrifice to the gods. Su Tong opened his mouth and explained to Gao Zhou, it is written in the 7 lots of clouds that in the 8 directions of the world, there are many Lushan, and there are 5 stars and 28 constellations. It is a grand ritual in Taoism to worship the gods of Lushan. Simply put, the Lushan De Jiao is the most grand and important ritual of worshipping gods in Taoism. Not to mention the complexity of inviting 3,600 gods from the heavens. Without Buddhism, it takes 9 days to complete. It is said that activities of this size need to go through layers of approval before they can be carried out. So awesome! Then we must go and broaden our horizons. Gao Zhou wanted to join in the fun wherever it happened. Hearing that Luo Tian De Jiao was so proud, of course he also wanted to join in the fun. As a result, Su Tong gave him a blank stare. If you want to eat shit, hurry up and refine the corpse. I'm afraid I won't be able to wait long. I also applied for a script delay, but it's hard to say how long the delay will be. Therefore, Gao Zhou must refine the complete Feishan Yaksha as soon as possible and successfully advance to the Grand Master, otherwise there will be a lot of trouble if things are delayed. Gao Zhou also knew that business was urgent, so he could only be patient and ensure that the task was completed as soon as possible. Buzz. The car started and continued walking towards the back mountain. Watching the car go away, Zhang Haisheng, who was standing in the woods, couldn't help but be in a trance. This is my old enemy. He remembered his master's words. Although Shuigui died, he acted according to heaven and inherited the destiny. Although he could not escape the death of his body and had no chance to enjoy the blessings, God would not treat him badly. The blessings would definitely fall on the 7 gates. Can you share in the Qing dynasty? The city has 800 years of luck, but he has monopolized the destiny blessings of the 7 gates. A cultivator of heaven, and an accomplished Yin Luo, you are natural enemies. Thinking of this, Zhang Haisheng couldn't help but lower his head and saw the dark green handprints on his palms. For a moment. Ouch, it hurts me to death. Oh, this melon, it hurts me to death. I just want to shake your hand. Why are you so cruel? Hurry up, it's just ahead. In the woods, 3 people walked forward on a moss-covered stone road carrying their luggage. The trees and weeds in front of us are almost 2 meters high. If Meidu hadn't led the way, normal people would never know that there is a cave to the sky through the thick grass. Hiss. Gao Zhou took a deep breath and felt that the soil here had a unique fragrance and pure yin energy. It made people feel cold all over, but for Gao Zhou, it was extremely comfortable. It is worthy of being a paradise in the cave. No wonder Taoist Mai Hua wanted to open a dojo here. Gao Zhou was so excited when he thought that he could actually refine corpses in the Taoist cave. Walking through the trees, I saw a patch of peach trees in front of me. It's not the season for peach trees to bloom yet, but flowers are already growing on the trunks. These peach trees are all planted by my family. They are a missing peach blossom array. Remember to follow my instructions, otherwise it will be quite troublesome if you get lost. Maydew signaled the two of them not to fall behind, and then silently recited the mantra, leading Sutong back and forth in the peach blossom forest for a while, and suddenly everything in front of him became cheerful. An ancient gatehouse standing on the mountainside appeared in front of the three people. That was not an old house in a mountain village, but a high-rise mansion. In front of the door stood two evil-suppressing beasts with fangs and claws, with human faces and animal bodies, and precious jade in their mouths. 12 steps up, one can't help but look up and look at the writing on the door plaque Plum Blossom Village. Hey, since this is Plum Blossom Village, why are there no plum trees here but peach trees instead? Gao Zhou looked around, but didn't see a plum tree. I thought, maybe all the plum trees were moved away when I moved out. Regarding Gao Zhou's doubts, Maydew smiled and said nothing, took out the key, unlocked the door, and pushed the door open. Buzz, ka-ka-ka. As the courtyard door was opened, a strong fragrance hit my face. I saw a huge plum tree standing in the center of the yard. The main trunk of the plum tree is like dozens of horned dragons circling upward, and the branches stretch into the air, almost covering half of the courtyard, and are at least 10 meters high. This is the first time I've seen a plum tree that's so big. Gao Zhou raised his head and looked at the sky full of plum blossoms. He was momentarily shocked by the ancient tree in front of him. This is an ancient plum. It is said that my ancestor, the Taoist plum blossom, was already so huge when he discovered it. Today, despite all the changes in the world, this tree is still lush with branches and leaves. It is no exaggeration to say that this ancient plum is definitely the first ancient plum tree today. Maydew raised his head and said proudly. Sutong raised his head and looked at the plum tree in front of him. He didn't know why, but he just felt that the plum tree seemed to have a strange feeling to him. When he looked at the tree, it seemed as if the tree was also looking at him. Thinking of this, Sutong used his life ikumen to look, but he didn't know what happened. He was shocked when he saw that there was a strange talisman in the huge tree trunk, and a dark light bloomed in the core of the tree. Sutong took a closer look, and suddenly his heart moved. It's Yanshu. Searching for spirits and bones. A strange light appeared in Sutong's eyes, and the talisman in the core of the tree turned into an ancient magic word under his gaze. Just when he wanted to take a closer look, Gao Zhou couldn't wait to take him to visit. Quick, let's go in and have a look. Gao Zhou pulled Sutong forward, but when he passed under the ancient tree, Sutong seemed to sense something in a trance, and an old chuckle came from his ears. Baby, come to me tonight. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 609. What's wrong? Gao Zhou and Maydew saw his expression was different and couldn't help asking. Fine. Sutong shook his head, looked back at the plum tree again, and then walked inside with the two of them. The scale of this ancient house far exceeds ordinary people's expectations. The ancient house is a courtyard with 7 entrances and 7 exits. There are 4 wing rooms, 1 bright and 2 dark. The middle one is the living room, and the 2 sides are bedrooms. The west side of the small courtyard is the living room, and the east side is the kitchen room, woodshed, and warehouse. There is also a hood room in the back and a large back room in the front. These alone can house dozens of people. More importantly, the house is backed by a mountain wall, with a bottomless cave below. According to Maydew, this cave is the real building of Maihua Manor, where it can be used for corpse refining, paper charms, alchemy, casting, etc. There is also a hidden military building, which contains a bunker, 3 granary storage rooms, 1,000-meter square wine cellar, and 7 hidden wells. In this place alone, there is no problem for hiding 3,000 soldiers, and there is no problem for food and accommodation for 3 years. Otherwise, Qingcheng is dark and unfathomable. In addition, the terrain here is dangerous, and the bluestone road in front of the door is difficult for one man to pass. It is precisely because of such a geomantic treasure that the Mei family has been able to withstand many storms, and even in war-torn times, they can still be wealthy and peaceful. I really don't know how the Mai Hua Taoist found such a geomantic treasure. This place is really pleasant. If I were asked to choose a place to die, I would be here and never go anywhere. I would be happier than a god. Gao Zhou stood on the roof of the attic, looking at the huge plum blossom manor in front of him, and couldn't help but sigh. Hey, when we moved out, the people in the clan thought the same way. However, my grandfather used both kindness and power, and it took a lot of effort to move the clan out. In fact, I think it may not be right to just abandon the past. I can only say that it is follow the weather and go with the flow. Meidu looked at the old house in front of him and had already made a plan in his mind. If he could be the master of the house in the future, it would be good to develop and renovate this place and turn it into a holiday manor. After the three of them visited, Meidu took Gao Zhou to the corpse refining site in the deepest part of the cave. According to Gao Zhou's estimate, he will need at least 10 days this time. After Gao Zhou left him a large box of instant noodles, he and Su Tong left the cave. The two of them didn't stay here too long. After tidying up a little, they continued walking up the mountain with the rice, noodles, and vegetables in the car. As Meidu said before, some of the Taoist temples in front of Qingcheng Mountain are now contracted out and are managed by the company. Except for morning and evening classes, the Taoist monks will not go to the Taoist temple most of the time, but concentrate on practice in the back mountain. Walking up the Bluestone Road, after passing through a sign with a red line indicating an undeveloped area, there is a cliff cave. The cave is very large. There are simple houses built at the entrance and several small stoves outside. Several old men in Buddhist robes were chatting in front of a campfire. Seeing Meidu and Su Tong walking in the distance, several veteran Taoists looked at each other and stood up one after another. Meidu put down the rice noodles behind him, walked quickly to several old Taoists, put his hands on his chest and bowed deeply. Mei family boys would like to say hello to these Taoist masters, and wish these Taoist masters endless blessings and endless Taoist teachings. Ha 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 ha. This child's mouth is really filled with brown sugar, it's so sweet that it's so sweet. Several old Taoist priests all recognized Meidu, and even went to his full moon wine party after Meidu was born. It can be said that they have watched this boy grow up and are very familiar with him, so they all looked at ease when facing Meidu random. Then several veterans glanced at Su Tong who was following behind. 7 Sec Su Tong, several Taoist masters have endless longevity and blessings. Su Tong crossed his hands and pointed his thumbs upward to reveal his identity. Although he wanted to say in his heart, I wish you all the best to ascend to heaven as soon as possible, the words came to his mouth instead as infinite longevity. After all, when I go out, I represent the 7 sects, not myself. You still have to abide by the rules, so as not to disgrace your master. Seeing Su Tong hand over his hand, several old Taoists looked at each other. Although they accepted it calmly, their expressions became much colder. Although they were far away in the mountains to practice hard, they were not ignorant of what was going on outside. Another Grand Master came out of the 7 sects, and Su Tong was born in western Hunan. The families were so frightened that they all issued statements to wash their hands in a golden basin, and the alien circle, how could they not know about such a big thing? Infinite longevity. Several people put their hands on their chests in reverence. The old Taoist leader pointed to the cave behind them. Taoist Master Dongxian has set up an incense burner behind. Please go there alone, Taoist Master Su. Then I'll take Brother Su there. Meidu was keenly aware of the coldness of several Taoists towards Su Tong, and immediately spoke to smooth things over. Ha ha ha, kid, fellow Taoist Su is the leader of a sect, so don't get involved in this. A Taoist stopped Meidu and held his hand with a smile. His kind-hearted expression was as if he had a completely different face than when he faced Su Tong. Seeing this, Su Tong didn't feel angry at all, he just smiled and said, "In this case, I won't be polite anymore." After saying "you're welcome," Su Tong stepped forward with one foot. Immediately, the faces of several experienced Taoists changed. The aura of the Grand Master spread throughout the air, and naturally it was not something that these experienced Taoists could bear. However, Su Tong walked very slowly, swaying with every step. The expressions of several veteran Taoists also flickered in and out following his steps. Although they were not hurt, it still made them feel their blood boiling. "I can barely breathe." Boom. Boom. Finally, a small bell sounded from the depths of the cave. The sound of the bell echoed in the cave. It temporarily disrupted Su Tong's aura and gave several veterans a chance to breathe. "Fellow Taoist Su, I am a poor Taoist who is handicapped and inconvenient to welcome you. Please don't hold any grudge against me. Please come in and talk quickly," someone deep in the cave said. When Su Tong heard this, he restrained his breath, raised his head and walked towards the cave. It was only after Su Tong left that several veteran Taoists showed their bitterness. The veteran Taoist leader just now said helplessly, "No wonder the headmaster said that King Chinch's 3,000 fortunes are not as good as the blessings of a lifetime. He only hates that the people in the 8 sects are short-sighted and participate in the trouble without repentance. They also exclude the 7 sections. They don't deserve this blessing. Baoqiman and his family will enjoy it exclusively. It's destiny, why are we worrying so much? How could Hai Sheng, who has monopolized King Chinch's luck for 800 years, be any worse than him? That's true. It's a pity that it's a new era, and there are no ships like us old guys. Junior brother, what you said is wrong. Aren't we in the best of times now?" When the old man heard this, he immediately looked at each other and smiled, "Great kindness." On the side, Meidu was confused. "What about 800 years of luck and good fortune? But I probably still understand in my heart that senior brother Zhang and brother Su are not compatible." On the other side, Su Tong walked along the cave. "I saw that there was actually a very large sinkhole inside the cave. The sun shone through the dense woods above, and there was the sound of running water inside. A stream fell from the mountain wall, and the raindrops fell. Under the sunlight, it was like a white satin, fluttering in the air. In such a dark and cold place, there is a towering stone platform, and the sun shines directly on the stone platform. A grass reed is built on the stone platform against the mountain wall." Su Tong looked at it with his life ikumen. This place was a perfect place where yin and yang met. It was a natural treasure land, even better than the ancestral home of the Mei family. It's a pity that it's already the end of the Dharma era, otherwise such a geomantic treasure land will definitely breed rare treasures. At this time, Su Tong noticed that there was a very strange flower plate in front of the grass reed. The flower pot was as green as emeralds and was carved from jade of unknown material. There was a dry sapling inside, which looked no different from the weeds on the roadside. It was only when he looked at it with his life ikumen that he discovered that the sapling was actually jewel-like, with a strange divine radiance exuding from its entire body. This place is not an ordinary place, and even this grass is not an ordinary grass. "Fellow Taoist, please come in." There was a soft call from the grass reed. Su Tong walked up the steps. After pushing the grass reed, he saw an incense burner with green smoke, a small and simple copper bell, and a white-haired Taoist sitting cross-legged in the grass reed. On the straw mat, looking at him with a smile. This is obviously the Dongxian Taoist mentioned in Miadyukao, the master of Qingcheng Mountain. The furnishings in Kalulai are extremely simple, giving people a calm and natural rhythm. The unhappiness that Su Tong felt just now dissipated a lot. Master Taoist, you're welcome. Su Tong calmed down his emotions and sat on the lawn. Only then did he notice that there was a pair of crutches beside him, and the old man's left leg seemed to be disabled. Taoist Dongxian immediately smiled and said, I heard this morning that it was Taoist friend who eliminated the yin demon, which really made me very happy. I originally wanted to visit Taoist friend, but Taoist friend came first, which caught Pandeo off guard. Taoist friends, please don't blame me if you can't welcome me. Don't hit the smiling person, Taoist Dongxian said. Su Tong was unhappy, but it was hard to get angry. However, when he went up the mountain, he was first threatened by Zhang Haisheng, and then given a cold face by several Taoists. Is this the end? Slap me and give me some candy? Who is disgusting? This junior came unexpectedly, otherwise. Su Tong frowned, looking a little embarrassed. He raised his head after a moment and said, how about, I sing a song for the Taoist priest to cheer him up? Well. Taoist Dongxian was startled. Su Tong had already begun to sing with an open voice. The one from Shandandan blooms brightly and red. Outside the cave, several old Taoists looked at the entrance of the cave behind them with puzzled faces. Meidu couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth a few times. He noticed that the expressions of the Taoist masters were strange, so he could only bite the bullet and said, haha, Brother Su's the voice is really, so, unique. You call this broken voice unique? Several old Taoist priests rolled their eyes, covered their ears, and left immediately. Seeing that several Taoist masters had left, Meidu wanted to hold on and wait for Su Tong to come out and go down the mountain together. The sound in the soluble cave suddenly sounded like a huge broken trumpet, which made people's scalp numb. Goosebumps appeared all over his body, and Meidu immediately shouted, I can't stand it anymore. After that, he ran down the mountain. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 610. After singing the song, Su Tong cleared his throat and felt that the suffocation in his heart was instantly relieved. Ahem, I haven't sung for a long time, so my voice is a bit rough, but I think it's okay. Su Tong looked at Taoist Dongxian. I saw Dongxian Dao's face was about to turn into a bitter melon. Hearing this, he nodded repeatedly and said, the singing is quite good. Don't sing it next time. Oh, I'll dance for you next time. Su Tong looked like he was really smart, which made Taoist Dongxian think of the eye-catching scene of Su Tong dancing with his toes. He trembled in his heart and quickly stopped the topic. Oh, see you next time. It's a good time for Brother Su to go up the mountain this time. Tomorrow is our Lushan Daijiao in Qingcheng Mountain. In addition to mission, the Longhu and Imei sects also attended the ceremony in person. In addition, temple owners from hundreds of Taoist temples such as Qingyang Temple, Yuntai Temple, and Erwang Temple will also come to watch the ceremony. I think fellow Daoist Su has not prepared a formal robe yet, but I have already prepared it for you. Taoist Dongxian said, taking out a package from the side and placing it in front of Su Tong. To participate in the Lushan Daijiao, one must wear formal robes. Taoist Dongxian seemed to be afraid that Su Tong would not have them, so he specially asked people to prepare them. Well, I don't feel very well, so I don't plan to participate. Su Tong looked at the hair robe and refused directly. In fact, from the beginning, I had no intention of participating in this so-called Luo Tianda dipping. Just kidding. Just those trivial and troublesome rituals took 3 days, inviting gods, worshipping gods, etc., and several more days, 9 days before and after. For him, it was torturing him crazy. Su Tong was not interested in this kind of thing at all. Taoist master, you don't think I'm a Taoist priest? I won't join in the fun. Hearing Su Tong's refusal, Taoist Dongxian was not surprised at all. He just smiled and said, "It's not up to you to participate in this matter. It's not my fault. Someone will know about this matter later. If you can refuse at this time, then refuse. I will not force others to do anything. It's not your words." Su Tong heard the implication of Taoist Dongxian. Could it be someone else? But who could it be? "Oh, if you can't refuse, you don't have to come in the first few days, just come and participate on the 8th day." Just when he was doubtful, Taoist Dongxian said that Su Tong did not need to participate in those complicated rituals. After all, Lucian Dachi was one of the highest sacrifices in Taoism. Besides Puxian and Zhou Lucian Dachi was the most important. So how dare Taoist Dongxian let a layman like Su Tong sneak into this important ceremony? Even if Su Tong wanted to go in, he couldn't. "Okay, then I'll wait and see." Su Tong responded casually. Throwing the clothes into the prop book, he stood up and walked out the door. "If I have nothing else to do, I'll go back first. I've been trying to keep my voice quiet for the past few days. Next time I'll sing Henan Bangzi for you." After saying this, Su Tongren walked out of the reeds without waiting for Taoist Dongxian to refuse. After going down the mountain, Su Tong saw Meidu at the gate of his old house. When Meidu saw Su Tong, he quickly asked, "What did Taoist Dongxian say to him?" Su Tong said briefly. Meidu also looked confused, not knowing why Su Tong was invited to participate. But he didn't think much about it. He and Su Tong went down the mountain. After eating and drinking in a farmhouse at the bottom of the mountain, Meidu drove home. Obviously, he had no intention of staying here for a long time. He gave the key to the house to Su Tong, just like lending it to Su Tong for a temporary stay. Anyway, there is everything to eat and drink here. The only thing that Meidu couldn't stand was the lack of internet. After seeing off the plum blossom, Su Tong wandered up the mountain. When he reached the gate of the ancient house and looked at the huge ancient plum in the inner courtyard, Su Tong began to murmur in his heart. Could it be that he really became a goblin? By activating the life icon, Su Tong could see that among the ancient plum trees, the Insha protection talisman was exactly the technique of searching for spirits and bones that he had comprehended. Why is this thing here? Was it planted by Taoist Mai Hua, or did the talisman exist long before Taoist Mai Hua and was later discovered by Taoist Mai Hua? All kinds of doubts came to mind. Didn't you ask me to come? I'm coming. Su Tong looked at the plum tree and said. Hoo. The mountain breeze was blowing slightly, and large plum blossoms were seen floating down. More and more plum blossoms were falling, and Su Tong's sight was gradually obscured by plum blossoms. When the plum blossoms dispersed, Su Tong took another look and found that he was in a strange place. When I looked up, I saw 5 words written on the stone wall beside me, 300 steps in the cloud. He raised his head and saw a stone staircase in front of him. There is no end to the stone steps, only extending into the sea of clouds overhead. Seeing this, Su Tong thought for a while and then walked up the steps. With my own physical strength, let alone 300 steps, even if it were 3,000 or 30,000 steps, I would probably not even be able to take a breath if I climbed up the stairs in one breath. However, when he actually stepped on the ladder, he suddenly realized that something was not quite right. I didn't feel anything for the dozen or so steps in front of me, but when I walked to the back, I felt like my feet were getting heavier and heavier, as if 2,000 jin weights were hung on them. Su Tong continued to walk a few steps and found that he could no longer walk. Just as he was thinking about whether to step back, suddenly I felt someone push me behind me. With a gentle push, the heavy weight under my feet suddenly became lighter. Keep walking, 100 steps will make your disease go away, your body will be healthy, 200 steps will make your body as light as a swallow, and 300 steps will transform you into an immortal. There was only a burst of singing in my ears, and a gentle force pushed Su Tong forward. Keep walking, 100 steps from the stone cow to the stone drum, 200 steps from the jade well to the jade well, 300 steps from the fairy book to the 10,000 treasure tree. After about 100 steps, the scenery in front of me has changed drastically. It is just 100 stone steps, and the mountain forest at the foot has become very small. The distance from the ground is not only 100 meters, but 1,000 meters. Moo. At this time, Su Tong suddenly heard the sound of a cow. Looking for the sound, he found a stone cow. The stone cow looks cute and naive, swaying its body as if it is twisting and dancing. Bang bang. At this time, Su Tong heard a drum sound in his ears. When I looked back, I saw it was a stone drum. There is no hammer on the stone drum, but it keeps making a thumping sound. So this is Shiniu versus Shigu. Just when he seemed to understand something, he saw a crack in the middle of the stone cow stone drum. Through the crack, there were gold and silver jewels inside. This was just the tip of the iceberg. Su Tong's sharp eyes saw what was below. There are also many large wooden boxes with only a corner sticking out, which shows how amazing the wealth hidden underneath is. However, he was not interested in gold, silver, and jewelry at all, so he continued walking up. After walking another 100 steps, I saw an ancient well. Next to the ancient well stands a stele with 4 words written on it: Ancient 6-hour spring. Hula la la. As soon as Su Tong approached, clear spring water suddenly gushes out of the ancient well and emerges from the well mouth. Su Tong took a sip and found that the spring water was cold, sweet, and refreshing, so he hugged the mouth of the well and drank heavily. After drinking enough, I felt refreshed and my whole body felt lighter. So he kept walking. In another 100 steps, it's time to reach the top. 10 steps, 50 steps, 80 steps, 90 steps, until only the last step is left. You can see the misty sea of clouds in front of you, and an ancient pavilion standing on a cliff. In the pavilion, an old man was waiting for him with a smile. You can't tell by his age, but he is a fairy-like person. He has long snow-white hair, slender eyebrows from the corners of his eyebrows to his cheeks, and his sideburns and long beard are light and elegant. Those who don't know it might think he is an old longevity star in the sky. Woolen cloth. Su Tong slowly raised his feet. Under the old man's gaze, he turned around and walked down the mountain. Alas, why are you leaving? The old man's face stiffened. He had been practicing this smiling face for a long time. Why did you leave before he started performing it? Su Tong heard someone calling him from behind and glanced at the old man in confusion, only to see that the old man had already caught up with his Taoist robe. Little friend, don't leave. Believe it or not, I have been waiting for you here for 300 years. As soon as the old man opened his mouth, Su Tong couldn't help but think of the familiar style of the magic stick on the 3rd floor of the mental hospital. I thought that if the two of them met, they would have a lot of technical issues to discuss. But I have no interest in the old man's behavior at all. 300 steps in the cloud, stone cow, stone drum, and jade liquid are all good, but the last sentence, the Book of Immortals and the 10,000 treasures tree, completely disappointed Su Tong. For this reason, the tree demon's deception ability is still inferior to that of the magic stick. It would be more practical for you to stick a note on yourself that says I am the old fairy of Plum Tree. Little friend, don't leave. Do you want to learn magic? If you do, I will teach you now. Su Tong rolled his eyes. He had no interest in this kind of magic stick at all. Maybe he was really capable, but during his days in the mental hospital, Su Tong knew very well that if you wanted to take advantage of this kind of magic stick, I can make money back from you 100 times 1,000 times. Therefore, Su Tong always ignored the magic stick. It doesn't matter if you don't learn magic. Do you want gold and silver? Stone cows versus stone drums. There are tens of thousands of gold and silver. If someone can figure it out, buy them all in Chengdu. You just need to nod your head and I will bring them to you now. The old man continued to linger behind him and said. Su Tong ignored him and continued walking down, seeing that Su Tong was about to go down the steps. The old man screamed, threw away his crutches, and changed his celestial demeanor. He sat down on the ground and cried bitterly, I'll give you whatever you want. You are the only one missing out of 3. I won't be able to achieve consummation if you leave. When Su Tong heard this, he stood still, lowered his head and looked back sideways. You really want to give me everything? The old man trembled when Su Tong stared at him and hesitated. I can't give you my body, but other things can be discussed. When Su Tong heard this, his eyes flashed. Hey, what a coincidence, this is what I want. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 612. A long time ago, this place was not called Qingcheng Mountain, it was just an unknown mountain. I don't know when a man and a woman came. They lived here for a long time and planted a plum tree here. Later, when they were leaving, the woman left something in the plum tree before leaving. 200 years have passed since then. Maisha gradually gained some consciousness. He remembered the 3 words the woman said to him before she left, that he needed to find 3 people to pass on the technique, so Maisha waited here, and he didn't know how long he waited. How many years? One day he met a monk named Yuji. Maybe he was tired from climbing the mountain, so Yuji simply lay down under the plum tree and snored. The plum tree tried to pass on what was in his body to him. Later, Yuji woke up and sat under a tree for 7 days and nights, then went down the mountain with a long laugh. About 10 years later, Yuji came back and said that there were many noble families in the world. He used talisman water to save people, but someone actually wanted to kill him. The Han dynasty was exhausted and the world could no longer tolerate him, so he simply left. He practiced hard in the mountains. Later, Yuji met a Chaifu, so he gave the Chaifu 3 scriptures that he had written casually. He said he wanted Chaifu to cause trouble in the world. After receiving the scriptures, Chaifu felt as if his brain had been enlightened. His whole appearance changed, and he shouted, "The sky is dead, Huang Tian is here to stand." After saying that, he held the scripture and went down the mountain. 2 years later, I heard from a passing fairy that there was a man named Zhang Jiao who had brought chaos to the world. After Yuji lived here for a long time, he left a volume of typing Yushu and disappeared without a trace. A few years later, he discovered that someone had built a Taoist temple on the other side of the mountain. It seems that a man named Zhang Daoling, after opening a forum there and preaching for a period of time, finally emerged and ascended on the top of the mountain. From then on the place became lively. Occasionally there are some mountain spirits and monsters entrenched in the back mountain, and occasionally some passers-by rest under the trees. But Mei Shu didn't dare to pass on her things easily, for fear that she would be entrusted to someone else and cause trouble to the world. I don't know how many years passed, but one day later, a young man who accidentally fell from the cliff above to avoid being chased happened to fall on the branch of his own tree. As soon as Mei Shu saw the young man, she felt that this young man was destined for her, so she passed on the things in her body to him. After the young man practiced hard here for a period of time, he went out to take revenge. In this way, about 10 years passed. The young man returned here with his 2 women and 3 children, built a house here and settled down. As time went by, the place gradually became lively. The young people's Taoism is getting deeper and deeper, their strength is getting stronger and stronger, and they have created many strange and weird spells. In bad years, the corpses are collected and put aside for food, and in good years, they are devoted to research. It's just that he practiced hard skills, but in the end he couldn't take that step. One night when he was 128 years old, he drank a lot of wine, came to the tree, talked to it a lot of things, and told it not to look for a destined person among his descendants. As he talked, he stopped talking. When the family woke up at dawn, they saw that he had passed away under the plum tree. But Plum Blossom Village grew stronger and stronger, and finally formed a large scale. So, you have endured this long and sent away several generations just to wait for me. In the pavilion, Su Tong looked at the old man in front of him who called himself the Plum Blossom Fairy, and kept smashing his mouth. This story was not as good as a magic stick. But Mei Xian was very sure. Of course, you can see the treasure talisman left in my body, which means that you are my last destined person. If you promise me, this villa, the treasure in the mountain, and I will give you all the collection of books and ancient books left by Taoist Mai Hua. Strictly speaking, these should be the things of the Mei family, right? Su Tong rolled his eyes. This was more direct than borrowing flowers to offer to Buddha. No. Yu Ji and Taoist Mai Hua made an agreement with me, and their inheritance belongs to me. Only my destined person can inherit it. This is the ancestral motto of the Mei family, and the Mei family can't say anything. What's more, the Mei family is no longer suitable for practice, and their family no longer needs these treasures. Mei Xian has watched several generations of the Mei family, and he knows very well the current situation and mentality of the Mei family. He knows best. As long as Su Tong nods, he can make the decision to give these things to Su Tong, and the Mei family will never complain about it. Otherwise, it would be a violation of the ancestral precepts and the agreement between him and Mai Hua Taoist. Even though he broke the agreement, he couldn't do anything to the Mei family, but then the Mei family's luck would dissipate, and within a few years the Mei family would inevitably be in decline or even fall apart. I believe the Mei family can clearly distinguish what is more important. Then what can you teach me? I already know how to search for spirits and bones, so I don't need you to teach me. Taoist Mai Hua has hidden the most important core chapter of Yanshu in the paper Spiritual Sutra. Coupled with the formulas taught by his master's wife, he has already understood how to search for spirits and bones, and there is no need for Mei Xian to teach him. It's precisely because you have understood how to search for spirits and bones that you need my help. Otherwise, even if you can figure it out on your own, you will have to figure it out until when. Mei Xian was not disappointed when he heard this, but was very excited to introduce to Su Tong the wonderful use of searching for spirits and bones. He opened his palm, and a magical talisman shining with strange light appeared on his palm. Try putting your hand on it and see. No, what if you pass this thing to me once it's put up? I haven't promised you anything yet. Su Tong shook his head in alarm and refused. This made Mei Xian secretly scold this boy for being too treacherous and completely unsuitable. So I could only say with a grimace, then what do you want? I'm missing a tree in my yard. Your home. Mei Xian couldn't help but smile bitterly. Where is your home, and how can I get to your home? Even if you want to transplant it, my rhizomes have already taken root for hundreds of miles, so how can you tamper with it? What's more, your home is just an ordinary place. Earth, I'm afraid I'm not accustomed to the soil. Mei Xian's words were actually very subtle, but also very straightforward. Where is your home? Can it be compared to this place? Seeing this, Su Tong stopped talking nonsense and took a step back, clasping his hands on his chest. What are you doing? When Mei Xian saw this, she thought that Su Tong was preparing to perform an apprenticeship ceremony for her, so she immediately sat upright and looked prepared. Unexpectedly, when Su Tong bowed his hands, the surroundings were shaken. What are you doing? Ignoring the fear in Mei Xian's heart, Su Tong continued to bow down. Suddenly, the void in front of his eyes tore open, and a large door appeared behind him. Su Tong knocked on the door, and as the door slowly opened, billowing evil spirits surged out, and when he looked around, he saw the boundless Black Sea. Here it is. Mei Xian's eyes widened, and she couldn't help but be shocked when she saw the scene inside the gate behind Su Tong. There is such magic in the world. Mei Xian has lived in this world for too long and has watched many unparalleled geniuses, such as Yu Ji and Mei Hua Taoist, so he naturally has a discerning eye and can tell what is going on in the world behind Su Tong at a glance. Good guy, others have practiced hard to become a great master. Between reality and reality, they are just evolving their own understanding of Tao. Just like the illusion Su Tong is in at this moment, it is the reality between Mei Xian's own reality. Floating clouds spread over the sea, and thousands of years pass in a blink of an eye. It fits his state of mind and growth process. But Su Tong's virtual reality actually achieves the combination of virtual reality and reality, connecting yin and yang. Such a strange technique also opened Mei Xian's eyes. This is not to say that the talents of Mei Hua Taoist and Yu Ji were not as good as the master, and they could not create such a strange reality. In fact, in the final analysis, the master was too poor. This poverty does not refer to wealth, but to resources. Shuigui's era was already the end of the Dharma era, and the resources and opportunities for practice had long since disappeared. Although Shuigui is a grand master, there is no possibility of further advancement. He can only work hard to figure out whether he can make a fuss between reality and reality. In the end, with the spirit of breaking a penny in half, he came up with the strange and unique skill of Baishan Kao. Otherwise, if it were another era, Shuigui would not waste time on reality and reality. He would have started to understand Taoism, enter Taoism, and try his best to improve his cultivation level. This is my home. It cannot be said to be a geomantic treasure, but it is the only place in the world that connects yin and yang. Su Tong pointed to the mansion at one end of the Black Sea and said to Mei Xian. Looking at the high-walled ancient houses standing tall in the void, connecting the yin and yang worlds, Mei Xian was moved. It is a bit exaggerated to say that this kind of place is unique in the world. After all, in its understanding, this kind of place does not exist in the world. It's just that this kind of place has either been sealed up or is no longer suitable for spiritual beings to live there. Some places have even been developed into scenic spots. At present, although Qingchen Mountain is half open and half hidden, what will happen if it is not fully protected? The reason why Mei Xian was eager to find the third destined person was because he discovered that more and more people had begun to walk up the mountain in recent years. When the cable car was being repaired a few years ago, if the Mei family hadn't come forward, the cable car would have hung over my head. While Mei Xian was struggling, a woman quietly appeared behind Su Tong in the Black Sea. It was the eldest princess. Ah! Mei Xian was instantly frightened when she saw the eldest princess. It claims to be an immortal, but it is far from being an immortal. To put it bluntly, it is just an elf who knows how to cultivate plants and trees. Seeing an enlightened person like the eldest princess, it is inevitable that my heart will be filled with excitement. Since the generation of Taoist Mei Hua, great masters have become increasingly rare, and those who have entered Taoism are even rarer, let alone those who have attained Taoism. Now, an enlightened person appeared unexpectedly behind Su Tong, and Mei Xian understood instantly. No wonder this boy was indifferent to the temptation he promised, and his family's wealth was also very rich. Yeah. The family is rich. Thinking of this, Mei Xian couldn't help but feel a little touched in her heart. What an ancient plum, do you want me to help you? The eldest princess's eyes were as bright as lightning, and she could see through Mei Xian's true form at a glance. No. What are you doing out here? Su Tong looked at the eldest princess and said that she did not need to intervene in this matter. Your master asked me to give you something, but you opened the door yourself before I called you. The eldest princess said, handing a warrant to Su Tong. When Su Tong opened it and took a look, he suddenly had a bitter look on his face. Luo Tian. Yes, that's a good thing. In the past, the 7 gates wanted to participate, but they couldn't get a seat. That is to say, the current situation is special. Otherwise, do you really think that you are nothing and can participate in a ceremony of this level? As the eldest princess spoke, she unknowingly came closer, her eyes fixed on Su Tong's neck. Su Tong could even smell the faint fragrance on her body. He immediately backed away vigilantly, fearing that this bitch wouldn't be able to help but talk to him. Okay, I get it. He put the order away and thought to himself, no wonder Taoist Dongxian said that if he can refuse, he will refuse. He will never force it. Now it seems that he really can't refuse. Putting this matter aside for now, Su Tong looked at Mei Xian. How about it, do you agree? If you don't agree, just pretend I didn't say anything. The temptation offered by Mei Xian is great, but Su Tong values Mei Xian more. If Mei Xian is willing to settle in his reality, then the benefits he mentioned will naturally be indispensable. If you don't want to, you actually have nothing to lose. After all, he has mastered the core of Yanchu, and the next step is to think about developing and creating on his own. Without the scriptures mentioned by Mei Xian, it may not be a bad thing for him. After all, the best does not mean the most suitable for you. Can. This time Mei Xian did not insist, but he put forward a condition, which was to wait for Su Tong to enter Taoism. After all, Su Tong is still just the Grand Master. The so-called Great Master is just someone who has figured out his own truth in a skill. But there is still a long way to go to truly enter the Tao. Only when Su Tong truly enters Taoism can he truly take the step of spiritual practice. Su Tong didn't think there was anything excessive about Mei Xian's request and readily agreed. In fact, I have already begun to think about asking my master to start preparing a suitable place for Mei Xian. After the conditions were agreed upon, Mei Xian seemed a little tired. After all, it was very tiring to drag Su Tong into the gap between reality and reality. So after confirming that Su Tong had no other problems, Mei Xian removed his reality and reality. Wu Jian returned to his body to rest. Aren't you going back? At this time, Su Tong discovered that the eldest princess had not returned, and couldn't help but look at her warily. Your master gave me a day off and allowed me to go out for a walk. The eldest princess glanced around curiously. In fact, the eldest princess could not escape the nature of a girl after all. The girl didn't like to play, but she had no conditions in the past and was not allowed to appear in the world and walk around at will. But now, she has reversed life and death, from death to life. Now she looks no different from a living person. Now, if she is not the kind of person with extremely high moral conduct, no one can see her whereabouts. I can play with you, but don't try to trick me. Su Tong stared at the eldest princess, always feeling that it was not a good thing for this girl to be with him. You just said that it is a good thing that my master wants me to participate in Lushan Dazan. Is there some mystery in it? Su Tong remembered the warrant given to him by his master and couldn't help asking. Well, just play with me for a day and then I'll tell you. The eldest princess's eyes were wandering, with a playful look, as if the expression on her face became richer after she became a living person. In fact, even if the eldest princess didn't say anything, Su Tong couldn't just leave her alone and let her run around, otherwise he would be the one who got into trouble in the end. So he made a 3-part agreement with the eldest princess. It's okay to take her to play, but first of all, you can't always think about biting yourself. Second, be obedient. Third, if you haven't thought about it well, you can add it at any time. The eldest princess naturally happily agreed to this. Later, the eldest princess also informed Su Tong about some things about Luo Tianda. She was very familiar with this kind of thing. Her grandfather, Emperor Jia, once had people on his behalf preside over rituals of the Fuxian Dachi level. It is said that 3,600 immortals will be invited to Fuxian Dazan, which is so large that it is rarely seen in the world. It is said that every time it is held, part of the luck of Qingcheng Mountain will be consumed, and this is an important memorial ceremony exclusively for the royal family, and it is not something that can be done easily. Zhoutian dipping is simpler, but it also requires inviting 2,400 gods to come to the world. In comparison, Luo Tianda dipping is simply trivial. Lucian dipping is the simplest of the three dips, requiring a total of 1,200 gods to be invited. It is said that after completing all the rituals, blessings will come down, and those who really have the opportunity will be favored and blessed by a certain god. Of course, this is what is said to the outside world. Although there are, very few people are truly blessed by the gods. The eldest princess once saw detailed records in her grandfather's manual. The so-called blessings from the gods, in fact, should be said to be a communication between humans and gods. In the name of the Dharma assembly, the gods can pass on some news to their descendants, or they can give private benefits to their own families, inherit some private goods, and so on. After hearing what the eldest princess said, Su Tong thought for a while, so, what god wants to see me? It seems like it's from Bian, or it could be your master's immediate superior. Anyway, it's definitely not the gods above who want to see you. Anyway, there's definitely no harm in participating. The eldest princess stretched her body and seemed not interested in this kind of thing. Su Tong thought about it for a while, but couldn't figure out a clue, so he simply stopped thinking about it. Before dawn, the two of them went down the mountain and walked towards the main entrance of Qingcheng Mountain. The road was not far, and the two of them did not have enough foot power to walk for long. But when we arrived at the place, we were immediately shocked. Su Tong glanced at the time. Good guy, it's only 4 in the morning. Are these people not sleeping? I saw that there was already a sea of people in front of the main gate, and it was almost difficult to find parking spaces in the 2 nearby parking lots. People who came later had to park farther away. It's so lively. The eldest princess looked at the sea of people in front of her, blinking her eyes. Born in the palace and died in the palace, this was the first time she had seen such a lively place. Oh, then you have to follow closely, I won't squeeze you out later, I don't want to find you. Su Tong glanced at his mouth. He took the eldest princess's hand and led her into the crowd. Su Tong and the eldest princess were like loaches, squeezing in every possible opportunity. If you see that there is really no road ahead, just step on it like lightning. Many people didn't see clearly who it was, so they felt a pain in their feet. They grinned in pain, stared and cursed in a circle. If they didn't see the person, they could only consider themselves unlucky. Fellow Daoist Su. Come this way, don't squeeze in. Not far away, someone suddenly shouted. Su Tong looked over and saw that it was none other than Zhang Haisheng. At this moment, I saw that he was wearing a formal robe, holding a jade ruyi in his hand, and wearing a Dharma hat. Not to mention that he looked a bit like a Taoist master in this attire. Seeing Su Tong looking towards him, Zhang Haisheng waved to him, indicating that Su Tong should follow the team of Taoist priests up the mountain, so that he wouldn't have to squeeze in with the ordinary people. Who knew that this was Zhang Haisheng's kind act, but Su Tong grinned. No, we want to experience life. Experience life. Zhang Haisheng frowned, wondering what this kid was up to. Why did there always be a woman next to him? Just when Zhang Haisheng was lost in thought, Su Tong had already dragged the eldest princess into the crowd, and no shadow could be seen. TCH. You're obviously trying to pick up girls and talk about experiencing life. Zhang Haisheng curled his lips, took a deep breath and began to guard Yuanyi and concentrate. Ding. Ding. As Luo Tianda, the consciousness is naturally very complicated. The Taoist priests of each family have to go up the mountain from the foot of the mountain, chanting and chanting scriptures, without stopping in the middle. Zhang Haisheng naturally had to concentrate on handling such a grand ceremony. I just don't know if it's intentional or not. Every time Zhang Haisheng raised his head, he could see Su Tong and the woman standing not far away, talking and laughing, either taking pictures, enjoying the cool air, or eating. The laughter that came out from time to time made Zhang Haisheng feel disgusted. After finally climbing up the mountain, I looked up and felt relieved when I didn't see the two of them. But at this time, a burst of flirting came from behind him. "Is this delicious? It's delicious. It's delicious. You can chew on the chicken's neck. Don't stare at my neck." As soon as I turned around, I saw the doggy man and woman in the corner holding a bucket of baked xianglao instant noodles and eating them with gusto. The sour and refreshing smell wafted over, making Zhang Hai's empty and flat stomach begin to growl uncontrollably. "This couple of bitches really piss me off. He was here under the sun, and they were making love to each other over there." This huge gap inevitably made Zhang Haisheng feel sick. Of course, apart from Zhang Haisheng, there were also a few Taoist priests who couldn't stand them. They were chanting sutras under the bright sun and the cold wind, while the two of them just sat around eating and drinking, which was inappropriate. Just when he was about to call someone to drive the two of them down the mountain, he suddenly saw a few old Taoist priests wearing bagua robes and holding whisks in their hands walking over from one side. "It's Taoist Master Lingxiu from Longhu Mountain. Taoist Master Jingyun from Yuntai Mountain and Master Huigu from Mount Imei are also here." Someone was sharp-eyed and recognized the identities of the newcomers at a glance. I saw that a few Taoists were quite old, but they were young-looking and had a transcendent temperament. These three Taoist priests all had the same status as Taishan among today's Taoists. In particular, Taoist Lingxiu from Longhu Mountain, although he is not a heavenly master from Longhu Mountain, has a high status and is also the president of the Taoist Association. After several people saw Su Tong, they walked towards them. Just when the young Taoist priests thought that this pair of idiots must be reprimanded by several elders, the next scene made everyone's eyes widen. I saw three Taoist priests from Longhu Mountain, Lingxiu, walking up to Su Tong and the eldest princess with smiles on their faces. When they looked at the eldest princess, their steps and bodies froze at the same time, and their eyes nearly popped out. Taoist Lingxiu even rubbed his eyes, almost wondering if he had seen it wrong. He quickly bowed his hand and said, "Immeasurable Heavenly Lord, a distinguished guest is here. Please move to the inner hall to rest." "No, it's good to eat here. Would you like a bucket?" Su Tong said as he raised the instant noodles and handed them over. When the Taoist priests following Lingxiu saw this, they were so angry that they blew their beards and glared. They were about to speak, but Taoist Lingxiu took the instant noodles generously instead. "Ha ha ha, being able to sit on the floor with two fellow Taoists is also a blessing for a poor Taoist." As Taoist Master Lingxiu said this, he sat down on the grass. When the two Taoist priests Jingyun and Huigu followed him, they were naturally unwilling to be left behind and sat down immediately. Just kidding, these old Taoist priests have been practicing all their lives just to become enlightened. Now a living enlightened person is right under their noses, how could they miss it so easily? Seeing this, Su Tong smiled and served instant noodles to the other two Taoists. The few old Taoist priests from Qingcheng Mountain who were following him suddenly became ashamed when they saw this, and coughed lightly. "Ahem, this is not good." Su Tong nodded thoughtfully when he heard this. "That's not a good idea. How about I sing a song for you to cheer you up?" After hearing this, the faces of several old Taoist priests turned green, and they waved their hands. "No, no, you're welcome." After saying that, they turned around and left without looking back. At this time, everyone was shocked, and the young Taoist priests were all dumbfounded. The dignified president of the Taoist Association, Taoist Master Jingyun of Yuntai Mountain, and Master Huigu of Mount Imei, these three are all well-known Taoist figures today, but they are actually sitting here eating instant noodles. And who are these men and women that can make all three of them so polite? This is Luo Tian Dazan. Why did several veteran Taoists from Qingcheng Mountain just run away from such an important Dharma gathering? Not to mention these young Taoists were surprised. Even the tourists from behind walked over and looked at the scene of three old Taoist priests and a man and woman sitting under a tree eating instant noodles with surprise on their faces. They also looked weird for a moment. Some people even took out their mobile phones and took photos. The title was, Going to the Earthly Feast and Eating Instant Noodles on Qingcheng Mountain. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 613. On the mountain road going down the mountain at night, Su Tong and the eldest princess walk side by side. What do you mean by talking to those three old Taoists? What is the emptiness of the Tao, and what is the reality of the combination? Taoism is naturally incredible. In fact, I only half understand it. Many of the words are the notes left by my grandfather. Telling them also gives me an inspiration. Even if you have achieved enlightenment, it is not the end. Once you achieve enlightenment, the next step is to cut off the path and merge with the path. Every step is difficult, and every step is like a life and death difficulty. Even though those three old Taoist priests cannot break through even the great masters in reality, their understanding of Tao is unmatched by themselves. Perhaps this is also a kind of practice. Once you gain Tao, you will soar in 100 days. Although there is little hope, it is not without direction. As they talked, the two walked to the door of the Mei family's ancient house. The eldest princess signaled to Su Tong that she could send her back, and at the same time handed a book to Su Tong. The book is thread-bound, and you can tell from the handwriting that it is newly written. There are 3 words written on the paper: Sutra of Life and Death. Obviously this book is the eldest princess's technique, the key to reversing life and death. She knew that Su Tong had always wanted this book, but she never had the chance to ask for it, so she simply wrote it early and gave it to him directly. I'm giving you something, how are you going to thank me? The eldest princess stared at Su Tong with blazing eyes, getting closer step by step. Su Tong's current body was not only a pure dark constitution, but also contained dragon blood. It was like a glass of fine wine that had been aged for many years, full of temptation. This, no reward for no merit, princess, is a great kindness. I would like to thank Gao Zhou in advance. When he comes out of seclusion, I will ask him to kowtow to you 100 times. Su Tong kept retreating. That won't work. The book is for you, not for him. Either give me the command arrow, or, let me take a bite. The eldest princess said as she planned to pounce. Su Tong hurriedly bowed his hands, summoned the abyss rift, and sent the eldest princess directly back. Call. After the gap between reality and reality was dispersed, and after he was sure that the eldest princess would not rush out again, Su Tong breathed a sigh of relief. He put the book away carefully and muttered, when Gao Zhou comes out, lend him the power of Wuxiang and let him thank the princess properly. After saying that, he sat under the plum blossom tree with his legs crossed, closed his eyes, and tried to communicate with Plum Fairy. This time, the Plum Fairy did not show her figure again, only the ancient tree moved slightly, and a glistening light appeared on every leaf. A talisman shining with precious light gradually appeared in Su Tong's consciousness. Suddenly, the talisman shone brightly and engulfed Su Tong's consciousness instantly. His consciousness began to merge into the body of the plum tree, covering the entire Qingcheng mountain along the roots of the plum tree. The plum tree has been here for who knows how many years, and its roots cover the entire corner of Qingcheng mountain. These rhizomes form a huge word shoe in the mountain. Not only does it absorb nutrients from the entire mountain, but it is also connected by the fate of the entire Qingcheng mountain. No wonder this old tree has been in Qingcheng mountain for so long, and no one dares to touch it. If anyone dares to touch it, I am afraid that the old Taoists in Qingcheng mountain will be the first to refuse. At this time, the plum tree trembled, and a large amount of Yanshu knowledge spread out from the treasure talisman and passed into Su Tong's mind. There is no magic in this knowledge, but the secret of Yanshu is told in the most straightforward way. Searching for souls and bones. In fact, each of these 4 characters corresponds to a technique of forming a seal. Find the word seal. It is to find the context of all things in heaven and earth. The avenue is invisible and the techniques are ever-changing, and so are the connections between heaven and earth. You need to find it first before you can further observe and imitate it. Detection seal. Exploring is to capture the connections between heaven and earth. Some unique spells often appear in some unique environments, and they have already appeared, but they will disappear in seconds, so they need to be traced at an extremely fast speed. Capture. Bone seal. The veins of heaven and earth are invisible and shadowless. It is not enough to capture the veins of heaven and earth. It is also necessary to shape and carve them according to their own characteristics and reshape them. Finally, he uses the spirit seal to combine his own spirit with the molded veins, and then derive his own magic. Although Su Tong had understood the spirit searching and bone searching method before, he didn't know what it was. If he were allowed to explore it by himself, it would probably take a lot of time to figure it out. But now, under Mei Xian's teaching, strange handprints kept appearing in Su Tong's mind. These handprints were repeatedly improved by Yu Ji and Taoist Mai Hua. They were not only simpler and more dexterous, but also systematically organized every step of searching for spirits and bones, saving Su Tong who knows how much time and detours. Rumble, rumble. It started to rain. Raindrops fell on the bluestone path. The Luo Tianda dipping ceremony is still going on the 6th day. It is said that in 4 days, many young Taoist priests have fainted due to exhaustion during the ceremony and were sent to the hospital. Several old Taoist priests in Qingcheng Mountain have already been mentally prepared for this. Luo Tianda dipping is not 100% successful, there is a probability of failure. However, at noon, the weather suddenly changed, as if it had received some magical power. The heavy rain gradually stopped, and the sun appeared from the dark clouds. The icy haze swept away. This also made the Taoist priests who presided over the Luo Tianda's Wan this time feel relieved, and they announced a day of rest. Many Taoists breathed a long sigh of relief and went down the mountain to find a place to rest, eat, and sleep for a while. Sleep. Haisheng. Taoist Dongxian called Zhang Haisheng who was about to leave. Master. Zhang Haisheng hurried forward and bowed deeply to Taoist Dongxian, and then continued to bow deeply to Taoist Lingxiu, Taoist Master Jingyun, Master Huiguo, and others behind Dongxian. Taoist Lingxiu and others saw this and praised him with smiles. With their keen eyesight, they could naturally tell at a glance that Zhang Haisheng had already broken through the Grand Master and even showed signs of entering the Tao. Senior brother Lingxiu, in recent years, several Taoist temples in Fujian and Guangdong have been advocating mutual exchanges. We must also keep pace with the times and send disciples to each other to exchange and learn from each other. What do you think? Taoist Dongxian meant to exchange disciples, but at a deeper level, he also meant to let Zhang Haisheng enter Longhu Mountain to practice. In earlier days, before going up the mountain, Taoist Lingxiu would never have objected, and would even agree to Taoist Dongxuan's proposal without hesitation. But now, after meeting Su Tong and the eldest princess, Taoist Lingxiu and others' minds inevitably changed. After all, no matter how good Zhang Haisheng is, he is still the direct disciple of Qingcheng Mountain. He has the exclusive fortune of Qingcheng Mountain for 800 years. This mark is in Qingcheng Mountain. Even if he settles in Longhu Mountain, he can only be an affiliated disciple. Therefore, facing Taoist Dongxuan's thoughts, Taoist Lingxiu fell silent. As for Taoist Yunjing and Huiguo, they started to fight, saying that this matter should be discussed in the long run. In that case, let's wait until Luo Tianda is finished. Taoist Dong Xian felt a little annoyed when he saw the ambiguous attitude of the three people, but he tried to show a calm expression on his face. Zhang Haisheng could only stand aside with his head lowered, cursing in his heart that he was unlucky. He didn't know that this was a sure thing, but now the attitude of the three Taoist Lingxiu suddenly became ambiguous. It must be the reason for Su Tong's sudden appearance that day, which invisibly took away part of the opportunity that originally belonged to him. Haisheng, you have worked hard these past few days. Please take a good rest today. Taoist Dong Xian saw that there was nothing he could do, so he signaled Zhang Haisheng to step aside first, and he would slowly deal with this matter with Taoist Lingxiu. Yes. Zhang Haisheng knew that this matter should not be rushed. He only waited for Luo Tianda's big dip before doing other methods. If it didn't work, he could only think of a way in the script world. So after getting up and leaving, he walked down the mountain. Not long after walking down the mountain, I took a closer look and saw Su Tong and Gao Zhou walking towards the town from a distance. Looking at the direction the two were walking, Zhang Haisheng raised his eyebrows slightly, remembering that his opportunity had just been taken away by this kid for no reason, and he couldn't help but feel a bit cold in his eyes. He simply took off his robe and followed up slowly. So why are Su Tong and Gao Zhou here? In fact, this matter started this morning. Gao Zhou originally expected to complete Fishan Yaksha in 10 days. But he didn't expect that the corpse refining ground below Miai's Huang actually contained a large amount of pure corpse energy. Combined with the Mei family's corpse refining skills, it only took 5 days to refine the semi-finished product of the foreign godfather in his hand. The flying Yaksha became a complete body. After completing Fishan Yaksha, Gao Zhou successfully triggered the certification task. Time is running out, and I will enter the world of scripts tonight. The reason why he was so hasty, Su Tong guessed, was that he had been stuck in reality for too long this time. Even excluding the delay he applied for to enter the script world, the last time he entered the script world was when he was in a temporary team with himself. So the two of them went down the mountain, planning to find a place in the town at the foot of the mountain to have a good meal first, and stock up on some supplies to enter the script world tonight. The two of them walked and talked. When Gao Zhou talked about his current state, his face was already beaming with joy. After truly becoming a Grand Master, although he is not yet stable, he already feels that his current state is completely different from before. The only uncomfortable thing is that the corpse energy in his body is too strong now. I make people around me feel uncomfortable wherever I go. Su Tong conveniently gave him the Book of Life and Death given to him by the eldest princess, which made Gao Zhou scream with joy. Seeing Gao Zhou's ecstatic expression, Su Tong touched his neck without any trace, then looked at Gao Zhou's neck, thought for a moment, and reminded, "You should study this matter quickly. When you have time, you should go and say thank you to the eldest princess. That's natural, that's natural. With this baby, I don't have to worry that my corpse energy will affect my ladies. Well, remember to wash up before you go. Don't worry, you must be bathing, burning incense, and fasting for 3 days," Gao Zhou said piously. "There is no need to burn incense. It is more serious to bring more blood tonifying medicine." Of course, Su Tong would not say this. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 614. Under the back mountain of Qingcheng Mountain, there is an ancient town called Tian Ancient Town, which is now a scenic spot for local tourists to stay and travel. Because of the recent incident in Lushan Dazan, even though it was the off-season, the atmosphere in the ancient town was still very lively. After Su Tong and Gao Zhou had eaten and drank enough, they made a lot of purchases at the shops in the town, and then wandered into the script killing experience center that appeared on the street. As soon as he entered the door, Su Tong was greeted by Amei's eyes. Great progress. Amei nodded, as if affirming Su Tong's strength. How big is it? Su Tong smiled and put the chocolate cake packed from the cake shop on the table. It's stronger than I thought. It seems like your luck is really good. I'll give you a suggestion. Upgrade the prop card in your hand as soon as possible. Although there will be losses, sometimes, invisible luck will give you bringing more rewards. Amei said to Su Tong in a meaningful way. Oh. Su Tong's brows moved slightly, and he narrowed his eyes mischievously and asked, "Can you tell me more about it? If you want to know, give me money. After all, information is very expensive." As he spoke, he extended a finger to Su Tong. 1,000 script points. Gao Zhou was behind, looking at Amei's fingers, and asked tentatively. As a result, as soon as these words came out, Su Tong and Amei were instantly looked down upon. Amei even rolled her eyes and said to Su Tong unceremoniously, "Where did you find the scapegoat?" "Gao Zhou." Su Tong held his chin, "I picked it up on the road." "It's not easy to kick someone who is related to you." "Gao Zhou." The two said that they had completed the transaction and exchanged one script point for a scroll. That's right, Gao Zhou looked at the transaction process and was a little confused. Is the news about the script studio so worthless? He remembered that before he met Su Tong, he purchased information once and spent 3,000 script points on it. Or, are these two dogs and a man having an affair? The two of them ignored Gao Zhou's weird look on his face. Su Tong took the information and kicked Gao Zhou in the butt. "Why don't you go in quickly? What are you doing standing here? You have entered the script world and I can track you. Come." Oh. Gao Zhou nodded like a chicken, and walked into the venue under Amei's guidance. Before leaving, I kept thinking, when did these two people get together? Gao Zhou entered the venue, and Su Tong sat on the sofa in the rest area and waited. He tore the scroll open and looked at the information inside. The probability of a legend. Not everyone has the opportunity to become a legend. Becoming a legend requires a certain probability, and the vast majority of people do not have such a probability. When a person has this probability, when his luck reaches its extreme or declines, when it reaches the extreme, the legendary probability will be triggered. There were only 2 lines of writing in the intelligence, but the content was shocking. I saw Su Tong calling out the props book. His eyes re-examined the prop card source. Passive effect, legendary probability. The probability that the holder has a legend increases by 1%. Note, if genius is 99% hard work and 1% talent, then becoming a legend requires 99 life and death struggles, plus an unexpected amount of luck. Looking at the notes below, combined with the information in this scroll, Su Tong instantly understood the reason why he was able to gain the maximum benefit from the crisis along the way. A probability that will only appear when you have the best or worst luck. Thinking of this, Su Tong looked at another prop card, which was another part of the source Suan Hua Divine Eye. This prop card itself has never been fused. It is because of its unique way of leaving the body, which is very profitable for me. Even after the soul left the body, and with the blessing of the pure Yang sword, he had the ability to almost severely injure an enlightened person. But now, his physique has undergone amazing changes, and the income from this prop card seems to have shrunk a little compared to before. In the tangle, Su Tong decided to take a gamble. After all, he swallowed the fairy treasure last time and gave himself the heaven-defying ability of the life Ikemen. This time, he might be able to give himself a surprise. Thinking of this, Su Tong dragged the prop card in the direction of source. All of a sudden, there were bright lights, thousands of colors, and auspicious light in front of my eyes. You collect mission items, and the prop card source unlocks a new ability. Following the prompt, Su Tong held his breath and looked over with wide eyes, only to see that there was indeed a new ability on the entry of source. Active Skill 2, Blessing of the Sky. Randomly consume script points. After activation, you will obtain the special State of Heaven's Blessing. In the State of Heaven's Blessing, no matter what you do, you will get 300% success probability, 200% super level performance, and 50% Heaven's Hand. The Hand of Heaven. Any item, after being blessed by the hands of Kyungdian, will acquire legendary quality. Duration, 30 minutes. Cooling time, 10 minutes. Note, I admit it, I am a golden finger. Looking at the fresh entries on source, Su Tong didn't know whether they were good or bad for a moment, feeling very awesome. But what is the point of randomly consuming script points? Could it be that the subtext means that the fewer script points you have, the better? Su Tong was still thinking about the use of this new ability, and prompts continued to come from the prop book. The mission is to trace one's roots and ancestors. Complete 1/3 of the task and get the reward. Passive effect, the probability of legend increases from 1% to 10%. Please continue to look for mission items and complete this mission as soon as possible. Upon hearing the prompt, Su Tong didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Although he has received a reward, it is obvious that he has only completed 1/3 of the task. If he brings the source prop card itself, that is to say, he still needs to find at least 6 items to complete the task. We must know that each of UN's items is an extremely hard to find treasure. It takes a lot of effort to find just one item, but 6 items are actually needed. Thinking about it, it feels like there is a long way to go. But completing each stage seems to increase the probability of becoming legendary. This time it was directly increased from 1% to 10%. Maybe next time it can be directly increased to 50%, or even higher. Coupled with the strange ability of Heaven's Blessing, in general, it is not a loss to replace Suanhua Divine Eye, and there is even a small profit. Just when Su Tong was wondering what this ability of Heaven's Blessing could do, Ame reminded Su Tong, Gao Zhou has entered the world of scripts. You can come here forcefully. The sooner you come, the smaller the price will be. Su Tong stood up after hearing this, planning to study it carefully after entering the script world. Because it is a certified script, the price for your forced arrival is not high. As the price for your forced arrival, the privilege of wealth and fortune will be revoked. Do you accept it? There are only 3 privileges of being blessed with wealth, and Su Tong has already enjoyed it twice. In fact, the overall experience is not good. With the addition of wealth, you will lose a large part of your freedom. But to say whether having money is good or not is nonsense. Whether it's my father March or the Morgan family, the convenience brought by money is simply not that satisfying. Well, may I know the historical background information of Gao Zhou's script? Su Tong did not agree or refuse immediately, but asked tentatively. Although Ame would provide convenience for him in some matters, when she started to become serious and keep a straight face, Su Tong knew that this was a business-like attitude, and he had better put away his playful energy and be a normal person. Good baby. Ken. Ame took out a scroll, opened it, and inside was the background of this time. After Su Tong glanced at it, he raised his eyebrows slightly. If I refuse, can I pay other prices instead? Randomly seal the ability of your 2 prop cards. Sure enough, even if Ame is on official business, giving her own choice is undoubtedly the best choice. After a brief comparison, Su Tong decisively accepted the first price. Without the blessing of wealth, I would not starve to death. And he took a look at the background of the script world this time. It was very turbulent. Under this background, even if he did not have wealth, he had greater freedom. Don't forget, your main task this time is to help Gao Zhou complete his promotion, and more importantly, complete the team building task. After confirming, Ame took out 3 masks and put them on the table. The 3 masks have different colors, one red, one purple and one black, which seem to represent 3 special identities. Please choose your identity this time. Ame raised her head casually and placed one hand on the purple mask without trace. When Su Tong saw this, he decisively gave up the purple mask in the middle. He looked at the red and black ones for a while, then tentatively stretched out his hand and placed it on the black mask. Cough. Ame didn't say anything, she just coughed lightly. Su Tong understood now and turned around and picked up the red mask. This is your identity. Take him with you, walk in, and open a door at will, and you can descend into the world of the script. Su Tong picked up the mask and immediately his eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but look at Ame. But Ame had an expression that said, "Don't look at me, I don't know anything." There was nothing inside the mask, but there were densely written small characters on it. Good guy, as expected, there is someone above, and this treatment is really nothing to say. Su Tong grinned, put on his mask and walked inside. Not long after Su Tong walked away, a ding bell sound came from the door. Welcome to the Script Killing Experience Center. Ame's face showed a signature smile. I saw that the visitor was none other than Zhang Haisheng, who had been following him all the way. Zhang Haisheng walked to the counter. I want to perform a forced descent. After saying that, she took out a piece of paper and handed it over. Ame took it, glanced at the name on it and then looked at Zhang Haisheng with some doubts. Any questions? Zhang Haisheng couldn't help but frowned. No. But this person's script world is very special. If you want to forcefully come to him, you need to have at least 3 to 5 prop cards and pay 5,000 script points. So much. It's not like Zhang Haisheng has never come by force before, but he didn't expect that the conditions for this visit would be so harsh. But he was determined to enter the world of scripts with Su Tong to see what means this boy had to compete with him. Thinking of this, Zhang Haisheng gritted his teeth and nodded in agreement. Then he called out the prop book, and after weighing the left and right, sealed 5 of the prop cards. Fortunately, these 5 prop cards have little impact on him. This is your identity mask in the script world. Please wear the mask and enter the venue. Ame took out a purple mask from under the counter and handed it to Zhang Haisheng. Looking at the purple mask, Zhang Haisheng always felt uncomfortable in his heart. Just when he was about to ask if he could change his identity, Ame looked up at her watch. Sorry, it's time to get off work. You'd better go in as soon as possible. Otherwise, if it exceeds 1 minute, you will need to pay extra. After saying that, he walked into the small house on the side without looking back, leaving only a lonely figure behind Zhang Haisheng. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 615. Drive. Drive. Da. Horses gallop along the official road. They have strong legs, slender necks, graceful figures, heads with slender jaws, and eyes with cold and fierce eyes. Anyone who knows how to look at horses will naturally recognize them at a glance. These are war horses carefully bred in Longxi. If you are not an elite member of the military, even high-ranking officials will have a hard time finding one. Occasionally there would be a convoy driving along the road, and when they heard the sound of galloping horses behind them, they would all look back. People who can walk on the official path are not officials, but at last they are family members of officials. But when they saw the rider on the horse, who was all dressed in black satin and silver-patterned brocade robes, with a horizontal sword on his waist, their expressions all changed, and they immediately hurriedly got out of the way. The war horses roared past, and soon they rolled up thick smoke and dust on the ground. In a moment, they were far out of sight. Who is he? The carriage curtain was gently pushed open by a hand. The hand was very white, and every fingernail was carefully trimmed. The moment the car window was opened, a faint fragrance wafted out of the car, making the entourage beside the carriage trance. After a moment, he realized what he was doing and hurriedly reported back, "Your Majesty, he is from the Shenwu Guard." "Oh. Keep going. The carriage responded lightly, seemingly not touched by the words Shinwavai. This can't help but secretly admire the followers. In today's imperial court, no one in the imperial court should tremble when they hear the words Shinwavai. Only his eldest son can be so calm. Keep on going. The entourage shouted, and the carriage was pulled onto the official road again and continued to move forward. Shinwavai. In the carriage, Su Tong closed his eyelids slightly, and the information about Shinwavai came to his mind. The Shinwu guards are the current royal guards of the queen. Over the years, the queen has become older and her suspicions have become more and more serious. He became more and more alienated and wary of the original bad guys and the imperial guard. Instead, they relied more and more on the Shinwu guards. Now that they were so powerful, they had the power to kill local officials below the third rank first and then punish them later. Local garrisons can be mobilized at will. Wherever he goes, his power is comparable to that of a governor. The reason why the Shinwu guards are so highly regarded by the queen is because according to rumors, the people who can enter the Shinwu guards are all closely related to the queen's natal family and the Wu family. However, Shinwavai rarely leaves the city of God, so why would he appear here now? Su Tong closed his eyes, and his identity and information kept pouring into his mind. And my identity actually has a lot of origins. Her father was Prince Gong Li Xiao, who was granted the title of Sichuan and Shu, because his mother was originally a concubine in the palace. She had neither political resources nor family power, and was completely a marginalized role. But perhaps it was precisely because his sense of existence was so low that he was luckily ignored by people during the several purges after the empress ascended the throne. As Li Zheng, Li Xiao's son, that is his current identity. The eldest son of Prince Gong's mansion could actually hide in his fiefdom, eat, drink and dress honestly for the rest of his life without worrying about it. But the bad luck is that Li Zheng is also a weird person. It is inappropriate to let the prince go, but he must be an official. This made his father Li Xiao very angry. How long has it been since you still want to be an official? Originally, Li Xiao would never agree to this matter, but Li Zheng went so far as to spend his own money to establish a relationship. Whether it was intentional or unintentional, this matter was reported to the Prime Minister of the dynasty. The Prime Minister of the dynasty didn't have any good intentions. He actually gave Li Zheng an official with a stroke of his pen. He went to Yuyang, Yuzhu to serve as a river supervisor. So there is a story about him sitting in a carriage and heading to Hejian Yuyang to take up a post. After learning his identity, Su Tong immediately received news from the prop book. Identity 1, River Inspector. Mission description: Yuyang was an important garrison town for the imperial court. However, tragedies have occurred one after another in recent years, so that the original project to repair the river has never been completed. The imperial court appointed river supervisors 3 times. As a result, one of the 3 inspectors died and 2 committed suicide. Mission requirements: identify problems and monitor the successful completion of the river project. Mission time: March. Mission penalty: extremely high. Regarding his identity mission, Su Tong did not feel any difficulty at all. In fact, when I got the identity mask, several key points were already written clearly on the mask. For example, my identity mission is clearly written on the mask, as the Yuyang River God. The Zhoushan River in Yuyang is not only an important military town, but also the largest transportation terminal today. Therefore, the people on both sides of the river have a high level of worship for the river god. Su Tong thought about it in his mind and probably understood that his identity and mission were inseparable from this river god. Now that we have a goal, it's easy to handle. The rest will be discussed when we get there. Team building task 1, get promoted and make a fortune. Before leaving this script world, the higher the official position you hold, the higher the team level you will obtain. If you lose the official position, the mission will fail. The prompt sound continued, This time it was a prompt for a team-building task. After hearing the prompt, Su Tong thought for a while. His current official position as river supervisor was only from the 5th rank. If nothing happened to him, this official position would have guaranteed him to build a team. However, the 5th grade should be the lowest level certified team. If you want to have various team benefits like William's team, your official position must reach at least the level of the 3rd grade. Although there is not much difference between the 5th rank and the 3rd rank, in fact, if an official from the 5th rank wants to climb to the 3rd rank, if there is no way, he will have to wait at least more than 10 years. This is still under the condition of good political performance. If the political performance is good, almost, it is even more difficult to get promoted. At this time, the task prompts are still continuing. Side Mission 1, Make friends with Shinwavai, Wufan. Mission description: no matter how well the river supervisor does his job, it is not easy for him to enter the official career. At this time, if there are noble people to help him, he will get twice the result with half the effort. Mission requirements: become friends with Shinwavai Wufan. Task time: January. Mission penalty: none. Seeing this mission, Su Tong's eyes flashed, and he remembered the Shinwu guards who had just leaped past his carriage. It seemed that the purpose of the Shinwu guards was not simple. Your Majesty, if you go further ahead, you will find the inn. If you miss the inn, you may have to spend the night in the mountains tonight. At this time, the voice of the entourage came from outside the carriage. Su Tong raised the car window slightly with his fingers and glanced at his follower Guoyi, who was standing by the window. I saw that Guoyi was not very old, probably in his early 30s and in his prime. With thick eyebrows and big eyes, a Chinese character face, 2 pairs of bulging veins on his temples, and a fierce glare in his eyes, he looked like a trainee at first glance. And it's still a very powerful one. It's just that there is still some distance between him and the Grand Master. Even so, such a person would have been considered a top-notch master in the world if he had been in the Qing dynasty. In addition to Guo Yi, there were also 12 followers who came with him. Naturally, these followers were all from Prince Gong's palace. It was obvious that his father, who had not yet been masked, did not trust him and arranged for him to be by his side. It seems that although he has lost his fortune, his status this time is not bad. Sure enough, there is someone in the court who is easy to get things done. No, just keep on your way. It's best to get to the place as early as possible. Right now, they were only 2 days away from Yuyang, so there was no need to waste time halfway. Yes. Guo Yi responded, but secretly sighed in his heart. The prince was young and vigorous, but he didn't know that he would not be so comfortable at night if he missed the inn. But then I thought about it, it was okay, there was no harm in letting the prince experience the suffering of the world. The group immediately quickened their pace, hoping to travel as much as possible while it was still not too dark. Suddenly, the speed of the carriage began to increase, which made Su Tong, who was lying inside, not feeling so comfortable. Even though it was wrapped in thick cushions, it was jolted quite hard. On the way, Su Tong casually asked Guo Yi what kind of kung fu he practiced. In the end, it was okay that Guo Yi didn't speak, but Su Tong was shocked when he did. He, what we old men can only practice are superficial horizontal exercises. We can only practice Tianmang fist, Vajra hand and the like. It seems to be infinitely powerful, but in fact it hurts the muscles and bones. You will inevitably have to suffer some pain when you get old. Guo Yi couldn't help but look forward to it in his eyes. It is said that if you can join the military, you can also get some good internal training tips based on your military exploits. Yes, if you have the secret of internal training, maybe Brother Guo can give it a try. If he can successfully advance to the Grand Master, he can also serve as 1,000 generals in the army. The ones following behind said half-jokingly. Guo Yi curled his lips and said, "You think that's just cabbage?" Being promoted to Grand Master is something only 1 in a million can do. It's not something that we, the rough and tumble, can think of. Several people started joking, but Su Tong had a very ridiculous feeling while sitting in the carriage. He couldn't help but ask, "How can I be the Grand Master?" Upon hearing the prince's question, Guo Yi and others immediately stopped their playful smiles. He was silent for a moment before saying seriously, "Of course not. If you can become a Grand Master, being promoted to President Jian is just a starting point. The military department will also record this person's name. If you can achieve more military exploits, your promotion will be much faster than ordinary people." "How fast?" "Well, this depends on the military merit. Even if there is no military merit, generally speaking, there is no problem in being promoted to the first level in 3 years." Su Tong rolled his eyes when he heard this. "Good guy, are the great masters of this era so worthless? In the late Qing dynasty, if a great master wanted to join the imperial court, he would at least start as a general, or even higher. Even if you don't join the imperial court and open a martial arts school, the imperial court will distribute a large amount of silver every month, which is called martial arts silver. There is only one Jian boss here. This gap is obviously not that big. What about those divine warriors?" Su Tong thought of the team that was passing by just now. He had just woken up at that time and had not noticed the strength of that team. At this time, he couldn't help but curiously asked. "Shinwu Guard, it is said that everyone is a master, but it does not require a great master to join. Those who can join the Shinwu Guard are the best in the army, and only those with a clean family background can do so. It is said that the leader of the Shinwu Guard, he has been a master for 20 years and has not lost a single game for many years." Hiss. Hearing this, the corner of Su Tong's mouth twitched slightly, and he couldn't help feeling regretful. If he had known better, he shouldn't have fused the Suanhua Divine Eye. But then he changed his mind and suddenly thought of something. He quickly stuck his head out of the carriage and asked, "Then if you are a master carpenter, what kind of job can you do?" Guo Yi didn't know why the prince asked such a strange question today. But he didn't think too much and thought about it. It's hard to say. There are very few masters among craftsmen. Even the masters can only make a living under the household department at most. They don't have any fame, but they have reached the top of the world from the 7th rank. In fact, Guo Yi has said it very tactfully. Nowadays, if you have skills and abilities, you can be called a master. But if you want to be an official, you must either get a special privilege like the prince, or they can only take the exam to obtain fame. If there is no fame, even those talented poets will not get an official position after all. Oh! Hearing this, Su Tong suppressed the ecstasy in his heart and retracted his head. He was already thinking about how to use his identity to repair Qian Mo. The group of people hurried into the night and began to slow down. Seeing that it was getting dark, Guo Yi asked people to stop and light a fire to cook. Su Tong also rarely got out of the car to stretch his muscles. I don't know how Gao Zhou is doing now. Looking at the bright starry sky above his head, Su Tong could not help but think about Gao Zhou. The starting point of the script world is too high, and Gao Zhou's strength is not so safe here. But then I thought about it, this guy is very wretched, and there are so many zombies protecting him. As long as he doesn't take the initiative to die, there shouldn't be any big problems. Your Majesty. Guo Yi stepped forward and handed over the kettle and dry food. Su Tong picked up the dry food and put it to his mouth to taste it. It tasted pretty good. When he looked carefully, he saw that it was a meatloaf made of beef. Looking at the food in the hands of Guo Yi and others, they were completely different from their own. The black pancakes were made of something they didn't know. Obviously, he was eating specially made fine grains, but Guo Yi and others were not feeling so comfortable after eating. Su Tong didn't show any pretense. He took a few bites of the meat pie and took a drink from the water bag. The result was sour and astringent that he almost spit it out. When I tasted it carefully, it turned out to be wine. It seems that Li Zheng still takes it too much for granted. He wants to be an official but does not forget to enjoy it. You guys take it and drink it, I don't want to drink it. Su Tong really couldn't drink this kind of wine, so he handed it to Guo Yi. Seeing this, Guo Yi quickly waved his hand, "Your Majesty, rough guys like us are not used to drinking such precious things. It's okay, just think of it as a taste." Su Tong said and motioned to several other entourages to come and have a taste. "Let's just make do with it today. When we get to Yuyang City and settle down, we won't eat these pancakes anymore." "Thank you, Your Majesty." When the attendants heard that there was wine and meat, they all burst into laughter and took a sip of the wine from the water bag. When the drinks came into their mouths, several people looked at each other, and then they all spit it out without holding back. Puff. "Your Majesty, why is this sour? It can't be bad." Guo Yi saw this and sneered, "You know nothing, this wine has this taste. It is said to be made from grapes from the western regions. What else? What, a 16-year-old girl, crush it with bare feet? You want a girl to step on you?" The followers looked knowledgeable. However, some people still curiously asked, "Why do women have to step on it, but not men?" Guo Yi and others vomited, "The men's football team is so smelly, how can it be compared with the women's football team?" After the group said this, the whole room burst into laughter. After eating and drinking enough, 2 people were arranged to keep vigil while the others took the time to rest and sleep. Su Tong couldn't sleep, so he lay on the roof of the car. There was a small breeze blowing, humming a little tune, and thinking about the meaning of several other keywords on the identity mask. Suddenly there was a movement in my ear. He sat up suddenly and looked around. "Call." A cool breeze blew across my face, and I heard a strange laughter, ha 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 ha, in the distance, looking for the sound of the wind. "Someone." Su Tong stood up, glanced at the 2 followers who were still keeping vigil, then jumped more than 10 meters away on his toes, turned around and disappeared into the woods. Under the night, Su Tong's figure shuttled through the woods with complex terrain like lightning, but he didn't even make a sound of footsteps. Blessed by the fury of nature, his steps were as light as walking on flat ground in the woods. Looking in the direction of the sound, a dilapidated temple appeared in front of me. At this moment, 2 men and 1 woman were fighting fiercely in front of the temple. The 2 men were fat and thin, with their hair disheveled, but they were dressed like monks. The woman looked particularly embarrassed at this moment. She was holding a long sword in her hand, and when she waved the sword blade, a dazzling sword energy burst out. "Grand Master!" Su Tong's eyes flashed, and he didn't expect to meet 3 great masters in the wild. Sure enough, in this script world, there are not a few great masters. Bang bang bang. The woman's swordsmanship is sharp and ruthless, and her sword energy is as fast as the wind. It's just that the fat and thin Taochuo is not a good person. One person is holding a vajra, and the other is holding a broadsword. The 2 of them cooperated extremely skillfully, slashing with the blades, forcing the woman to keep parrying. Suddenly, the fat man hit her hard on the back with the vajra. Ah! For a moment, the woman was beaten until she vomited blood, and her body was in a mess. The fat Taochuo saw the flaw, roared, and stepped forward quickly. The vajra in his hand danced rapidly, and the green flames from the vajra hit the woman, knocking her to the ground. The clothes on his body were torn, revealing a strange set of soft armor. Mean. The woman was shot to the ground, her face turned earth-colored, and she spat out a bloody arrow towards Fatty Leng. The fat man turned his head to hide, and the blood arrow hit the temple wall behind him, immediately smashing a hole into the wall. The thin man waved his hand and pushed, and the big knife in his hand flew up with a loud sound. The blade hit the woman's chest. This time, She was seriously injured and she was completely unable to fight back. Hey, it's over so soon. Su Tong, who was hiding not far away, sighed and prepared to leave when he saw this. What? A hero saves a beauty? Come on, I already have a lot of tasks on my shoulders, but I don't have the time to meddle in other people's business. But he just took 2 steps. Then I heard bursts of laughter from the fat man behind me. Moda was born to create the world. If you, little lady, had obeyed and taken refuge, why would you have suffered this calamity? Hearing this, Su Tong paused and turned his head with a strange expression on his face, looking at the backs of the fat man and the thin man. The birth of Mochuo is clearly a cult that deceives the people. Today, I will kill or chop you into pieces in your hands, but in the future, the Hunshan prison will definitely kill all these evil spirits. I don't know whether to live or die, Amitba. The thin man put one hand on his chest, his eyes gradually becoming colder. The fat man on the side walked forward with a smile. Hey, the girl was so pretty, it would be a pity to die like this. What are you going to do? Sensing the unkind look in the fat man's eyes, the woman suddenly became panicked. What to do? Of course it's, who? Suddenly, the fat man turned his head sideways, threw up the demon-conquering pestle in his hand, and burst out with bright blue flames. Boom, there was an explosion, which turned the woods in front of him into a sea of blue flames. The temperature of this green flame was extremely high, turning the woods into scorched earth in an instant. Ouch! Suddenly a miserable scream came from the woods. Hot, 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 it's so hot. I saw a man running out of the forest with green fire all over his body. Fatty Taochuo was stunned when he saw this. This Baiyuan Qingjian could even incinerate steel, so why did a person pop out? Court death. The thin man snorted coldly, and rushed forward with a lunge. The sword in his hand whistled, and the tiger-headed sword hit his head. There was only a loud clang, and the thin man's face twisted in pain. It felt like his sword struck a diamond, causing his jaw to go numb. Taking a closer look, he saw the burning man in front of him, with one hand hitting the blade. Under the fist burning with cyan flames, a layer of black scales could be clearly seen covering his fist. What is this? The thin man was shocked. His sword, which was forged from fine iron from the western regions, was actually blocked by someone's fist. The figure wrapped in flames made it difficult to see the face, and only a questioning voice came from inside. You just said that Moda was born. You are from the Moda sect. Who are you? The thin man said, and was about to put away the knife, but instead he saw that fist grabbing the blade, and with a squeeze of his fingers, the blade was broken with a bang sound, and the broken blade made a buzzing sound in the opponent's hand, and struck with the knife towards the thin man's chest. The thin man was shocked, but after years of life and death experience, his muscles had already developed instincts, and he held the broken blade and raised the knife to greet him. Unexpectedly, at this moment, there was a sudden buzz in the air. The thin man only saw a long sword covered with light fluorescence stabbing from under his ribs. A strong sense of crisis suddenly arose in his heart. He subconsciously hid back, but he ignored the broken blade in front of him that cut along the spine of the knife in his hand. The next moment, a strange force seemed to stick to his own blade, causing his body to reach forward involuntarily. No. Realizing that he had made a mistake in leaning forward, the thin man wanted to let go and throw the knife away, but saw the broken blade flashing upward like lightning. Puff. Blood spurted out from the thin man's throat. To outsiders, the weird posture looks more like a thin man leaning against him and actively trying to get people to hack him. Pingju. Looking at the figure lying on the ground, the fat man's eyes were rounded and bloodshot, and he let out a roar, and the aura on his body exploded like a bomb. Wow! Opening his hand, the demon-conquering pestle flew into his palm, and green flames burst out like a bursting divine thunder. Playing with fire. Su Tong narrowed his eyes slightly in the wild flames, and a smile slowly appeared at the corner of his mouth. You are not qualified yet. As he finished speaking, he swung the long sword in his hand, and saw a wisp of vermilion flames, drawing a half-moon-shaped arc shadow in the air along the blade. Boom! In an instant, green flames exploded into wisps of fireworks in the air. Fatty's pupils tightened, and the world in front of him was instantly filled with red light.